Okay, I don't know if it's my headphones or if you're far away from your mic.
It's probably because it's set to Arctis and not my condenser. Yep, that'll do it. Okay, great.
There it is.
So now it's on that one. Let's see here. Okay, tell me if the stream's working.
Oh, let me just click this button.
Because I sure don't know.
It
I mean, it says it's live, so I just assume that it's live. Let's see.
says live for me too. It's
It
on.
says I'm live.
Okay, what just happened? YouTube, please stop.
Let's stop at YouTube. But you should be able to find it, as far as I know. Let's see.
Something went wrong again.
Okay.
All right, it says live. There it is. I
So
got
it's
it.
working?
It's working. I see you.
Perfect, then.
Okay, so here's what's gonna happen. Abby is handling your Abby's handling your comments in chat,
Okay.
and then I will be handling Discord.
Okay, great. How many people we got so far?
2, 3, 4, 4.
It's working its way up. So it is INFP appreciation live stream. I always try to encourage people to not be shy about their INFP diagnosis. They get a bad rep in the community for obvious reasons. What do you like most about INFPs, Harley?
They're actually genuinely nice people, shockingly. They're also very, very um, I'm carrying double.
Mm-hmm.
Let me turn down this. Okay, there we go. They're actually genuinely nice people, but they're also very genuine people, and a lot of people don't understand that. They're very quiet, and I, as an INTP, appreciate the silence at times.
Except for when they actually have a chance to talk to people, and then they
Oh,
have a hard time not shutting up.
right, exactly.
Should
I
have
can't
invited
pull the
Drew for
link.
this.
Can you send me the link?
The what now?
Can you send me the link because I can't copy and paste it?
Let's see. Okay, I put it in that chat.
Thank you.
In case anyone's wondering. What?
I said let Abby do her job.
I didn't understand that at all.
Fantastic. Hi, Abby.
Hi, Abby. What a great gal. If anyone's wondering, this is the latest Armored Core game, Armored Core 6. That's what I'm going to vaguely try to play while answering questions. Well, INFP-related questions. One of my favorite INFPs, Johnny Depp. Anyone familiar with Johnny Depp? He had a... Was it a girlfriend, a wife, or something that had an accident in his bed? Trying to remember.
That would be his ex-wife.
Ex-wife.
Amber.
Hmm.
I don't remember her last name, but yeah.
That's probably the one thing I would absolutely want to touch on today is the INFP's ability to act. Amber Heard. Yes.
There it is.
The INFP has the unique ability to not just really, emulate someone's behavior, so that someone gives them a script and then it's like, oh well, I can absolutely get into this character. It's they can become that character. That is, a Harley uses a cellular device as a microphone, so you can get what you get.
Okay, I'll fix it. I'll use the other one.
You have another one?
I have like 7 or 8. We don't question.
That reminds me, my INTP friend of 20 years was actually in my Discord yesterday, or really early this morning. I was hoping I could get you two to talk, because I figured that would be just awkward enough to make for a video. INFPs are, of course, as I said, excellent actors, but they can actually take on the life of a character, essentially becoming that character, which is, I always thought to be incredibly impressive, to be able, losing yourself in a persona, which, it strikes me as odd that more INFPs don't just try to emulate the behaviors of other people that they would prefer to be. No INFP ever takes that advice. How do INFPs use extroverted thinking? Excellent question, Abby. The answer being, well, they don't. I mean, not really. Yes, when it comes to logical situations, well, they're going to, normally they would just go with what's the most pre-established, set of information, but realistically they don't want to rely on that. They want to go with what feels correct. Like, they're more concerned with whether or not there are moral or ethical implications with something, rather than go with purely logic. Thought someone knocked on my door. Might be hearing things.
Is this better?
Oh, what?
Is this better?
A stutter?
No, is this microphone better?
I don't think so.
Fantastic. Hold, please.
INFP appreciation stream. What I like, I think the most about INFPs is that they seem genuinely interested in the feelings of other people. That's what I mean. Sure, they can go off on a rant and talk about things that are happening in their life, sure, but as long as they're in a relatively balanced mood, they'll actually be more concerned with the feelings of other people, which I think it makes them fantastic therapists, most certainly, because that's generally the job. You sit, you ask questions, and then the person feels better at the end of it, or they're supposed to, and then they come back next week to give you another $100 for an hour. More INFPs need to go into therapy or just general psychology, I think. Let's see here. As for the using extroverted thinking portion of that, they just don't really want to use it if they don't have to. And if they have to use it, they'll go with a source that they feel is correct. Ones that they like, typically. How does introverted feeling and extroverted intuition compare to introverted feeling and extroverted sensing? Well, it's I guess the simplest way to put it is feelings for the abstract things. So people's perspectives or imaginary scenarios, things like that. Whereas introverted feeling and extroverted sensing, well, that's how do I feel about, most of the time, once again, very simply put, how do I feel about my current surroundings? What are currently the things that are going on in my life? How do I feel about them? Is it good? Is it bad? Should I change some things? In most cases, usually not, because extroverted sensing usually gives that person a general basis of what's what's correct for them and what isn't. So most of the time they're usually okay. However, in the case of ISFPs, they sometimes reach a point in their life where they look at how things have been, how things are currently going, and they say to themselves, this isn't where I want it to be. I wish I was somewhere else. I wish I was further along, or so on and so forth, which of course causes depression, which causes other bad things that I don't think I can discuss on YouTube. What else about INFPs that we can appreciate?
Okay, so I think I figured it out. Is this better to you, Urchin?
Yeah, it's really good, actually. Way better.
Excellent.
What happened?
I took away the microphones on my headphones, and I'm just using my actual mic on my phone.
Okay. Well, that'll work then. Let's see. INFPs have a preference for introverted feeling, extroverted intuition, introverted sensing, and finally extroverted thinking. What other? Well, of course, they have generally good memories, although unfortunately a lot of those memories are about negative experiences. But then again, if you're over the age of 5, you know that negative memories are more prominent in the mind than the pleasant ones, generally. It's hitting the mic and it sounds as if you were playing, you're hitting the controls. I don't know what's wrong with it. It's probably fine. I don't get full body tattoos, especially on ISFPs. You don't understand why they would get full body tattoos. Usually, well, I mean, tattoos are, it's supposed to be this way of uniquely altering how you look. You can pick whatever tattoos that you want, and then a lot of people pick tattoos that that they identify with. Some people do the Japanese kanji that was popular. As a matter of fact, I knew an ISFJ who had what's that dumb red car in that car movie? But it was like a race car. Anyways, the red one.
It's not Mater.
I swear it was this big, like down the rib cage, just a Disney cartoon character. And I'm like, wow, that's silly. But of course, that was to remember her childhood being mostly Disney movies.
Lightning McQueen. His name is Lightning McQueen.
Yeah, that. So, some ISFPs will get tattoos, other ones do not. I dated an ISFP for 4 years or so, and she had just like one tattoo, a paw print up here somewhere. Nothing too serious. ESFPs typically enjoy their tattoos, though, for sure. But that's the trade-off. When you lead your life through extroverted sensing, what's going on around you is more or less all there is to it. So, at least until they get older. I mean, once they actually reach a particular age, they realize that this mortal coil, this physical plane of existence, can be rather limiting, and so you need to start maybe trying to find interests in the abstract, possibly. But then there are cases like Marilyn Monroe. She died as she lived. Let's see. What's another INFP appreciative quality trait? Just crickets. How about questions regarding INFPs? I remember I was actually going to do a video on INFPs. Let me take a look here. Famous, no, not one, of course they'd be famous. INFP characters. Now, I don't know many in anime. I don't pay that much attention to it. Or, of course, more importantly, the animes that I watch, most people wouldn't watch. So, There's that. Scarlet Witch being one. Been watching a lot of House lately, and Dr. Cameron is an INFP, which it's strange that an ENTP diagnostician would actually keep an INFP consistently around. I understand the appreciation for extroverted intuition, but she's always stepping on his toes about the morals and ethics of the decisions that he makes. Seems to kind of slow him down a little bit. How many people are in the stream now?
Yeah, but doesn't he normally keep her around for the entertainment value? Like, he loves to challenge her.
Sometimes there was an episode where he chose to treat a inmate on death row, over some woman who had lung cancer. Well, he wanted to do that, but she was bothering him. He would frequently get irritated by her moral musings. It was almost like he wanted to corrupt her, I guess, and then pull her away from the morals and ethics, but it never worked, obviously. Let's see. I figured, how many people are watching now?
Abby.
I can't see. I can't tell. Anyway, not important. Let's see here. How do INFP males tend to differ from INFP females? So that is an excellent question, because oftentimes you meet an INFP male and female, and they seem to be in completely different frames of mind. Where do we start? So we live in a society, as you well know, and in this society, as a man, being emotional, being in touch with your feelings, frequently bringing up topics related to feelings or emotions, tends to get you ostracized from society. People, even the people that are kind to them, even the people that understand where they're coming from, even they find it exhausting in the males. Like women, for example, they typically, not all the time, but almost all the time, do not care for a man that talks about feelings and brings up feelings all the time. It's not, and of course, most men don't want to talk about feelings, don't care to discuss them, don't want to be around them. And so for an INFP male, that is particularly devastating for a social life in most circumstances. So a lot of INFP males that I've known, yeah, they grow up, they mostly live normal lives. Some of them are disabled, due to traumatic experiences. But some of them, pull it together, and then they get through life relatively well. But they're always going to have this kind of chip on their shoulder, because they've had way too many experiences where they were shunned for constantly bringing up, emotional experiences or caring about the feelings of other people. And so some of them can be a little pessimistic when it comes to engaging with people. So there's that. Point is that they oftentimes become depressed. They feel like the world doesn't understand them, and they feel like there's no place for them in society. Now with the INFP females, take virtually everything I said and then wipe it off the table, because for women, it's very normal for them to discuss feelings, to want to talk about the feelings. So when they're with other women, it's a very normal, natural part of life. And then when they're talking with men are familiar with it, and they understand it, and they understand that that's what women normally do. So it doesn't really bother them that much, at least in short doses. So they tend to live much much better lives. Much happier, more well-adjusted, because no one shuns them for being who they are. So INFP males are uniquely disadvantaged in our society. They need their own planet, really. We'll call it Planet Emotiona, and everyone just talks about their feelings, and then they would feel happier there, I would imagine. Life can be very tough for an INFP male if they're not adequately praised for their frame of mind. If they're always brought down, I mean, what does that do to anyone? You take any personality type and just keep kicking them into the dirt for like the first 20 years of their life. Yeah, they're not going to be particularly well adjusted. Let's see here. Oh, well.
To answer your question, 9.
9 people. Fantastic. And we just started. Well, when I am with an INFP female, I wish I could shun them for talking about their feelings. Well, I mean, you can. Shun them if you'd like to. It's just, in most cases, there isn't much of a reason to outwardly tell people to shut up or to go away or to stop talking about the things they want to talk about. Just, you just nod your head, you politely agree, or, well, of course not disagree because that could cause problems, but you politely pretend to agree with whatever it is that they're saying until they finally stop talking. Now, in the case of many of the INFP males I've known, when I'm talking to them one-on-one, they don't shut up. They keep talking. Let's see here. What are your favorite typology channels? I don't have any favorites. I don't look at any other typology channels. If anything, I would just pick mine. But I don't even watch my own videos, so. Personal experiences with INFPs. So my favorite personal experience was the one I made the skit about with the INFP that wanted to. He was a very strange case, most certainly, because I would think that almost every INFP would take the clues of the situation and understand what they needed to do. In his case, he was way too emotionally attached to this woman, which, by the way, was not having relations with him at all. Like, they would talk about emotional stuff, which is normal when you're talking to women. So he believed that they had some kind of special connection, that it was obvious to me that they did not have a special connection. And so he decides to call me out of the blue, tell me the whole situation about this woman that he had been talking to. And he says to me, I need to go see her. Well, fine. You go do that. Like, that's totally cool. And he wanted me to help him find this woman at a bar and essentially stalk her for a little bit so that he could eventually confront her about why she lied to him. Have you never been manipulated by a woman that you were, in love with before? That seems kind of normal. Like, people in general, whether man or woman, if they know they have a hold over you, it's possible that they'll try to take advantage of you. People are people at the end of the day. Let's see. Other personal experiences. They're virtually all the same. In most cases, you talk to one INFP male, you've talked to them all. They talk about their feelings and they keep going on. And here's the fun part. I'm not sure if they realize that no one cares or not. I think they have to weigh, because they must have some level of preference for extroverted feeling. So they have to weigh. I assume what goes through their mind is, okay, he probably doesn't care, but at the same time, I don't really get to talk about this stuff. So as long as he's being polite, I'll just keep talking, even if it's, maybe putting him to sleep. Maybe that's how they weigh things out. I cannot discuss stuff with INFPs, otherwise the language is very familiar. I see it as impossible relationship, avoiding some topics forever. Well, some topics you can avoid forever, other ones you can't. And definitely, anytime I have to talk with an INFP male, especially ones that I have things in common with, like games, for example, I'll try to say, oh yeah, that's sad that happened. Hey, do you want to play this game? And then try to get their mind off of emotional related topics. What types of careers or jobs best suits an INFP or INFPs in general? I think therapy, like in my opinion, that's the number one job. Therapy. You go in, you sit in your chair, someone's on the couch, you listen to their garbage all for a good hour or so. They give you $100 and then they leave. And you do that for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Not so bad, right? I mean, because that's what most INFPs enjoy, is they enjoy listening to the perspectives of other people and the emotionally charged situations that come from those perspectives. You could also go, vet if you're not squeamish about, mushy parts of animals, then you could be a veterinarian, some light surgery here and there, give medications out, prescribe medications, etc. You could totally do that. Of course, that takes work just like anything else. I would think that INFPs had the capacity to be these very caring doctors, but and that seems like a good idea because they get to talk to new people all the time and enjoy their company and get really explain or show to your patients, express to them how much you care about their personal life. And then, of course, the amount of praise that they get in return for correct diagnoses, saving people's lives. There's a lot of positive experiences you can get from being a doctor. However, that does take a great deal of work. Whether you're going to be a medical doctor, or you're going to be a veterinarian, or going into psychology, or being a therapist, that takes a great deal of work. And if the INFP isn't being appropriately supported, it may fall through for them, possibly. More likely than not, actually, I would say. But those are the best ones, and of course, not all INFPs are in one of those positions. I'd imagine that there's a great number of them that aren't in those positions. There's probably an INFP right now that's been working at the Walmart for the past 20 years. And every day is just a slap to the face. I also got the impression that many INFPs prefer communism as an acceptable form of government. I don't know how true that is for every INFP. I don't often talk to them about politics, but I get the impression that they enjoy the idea of having this community that shares things with each other because they love each other all the time, which of course that's not humans, but I figured that they would prefer that. What's a dead giveaway someone is an INFP? When they're interested in my feelings. Like that's when my INFP radar pings. When someone really cares about my personal feelings on anything. Like when that's the question that gets asked. Like, why would you care about my perspective and my emotional thoughts on the subject, or my personal beliefs, or morals, values, ethics? But usually it's that. I was just recently at the vet for no reason. Turns out the dog was fine. But when I was there, I don't recall picking out an INFP specifically, but I would think that if you did go into a vet, you would find at least one. For sure. Hanging out there. Other dead giveaways for an INFP. Specifically an INFP? I'm not... Because INFPs don't go out of their way to try to be weird or different, you know, especially in public. Like they don't necessarily go out of their way. But it's when the talking starts, you know, it's those crossroads that I try to tell people about. They come to a crossroad in their life and they can choose to, you know, handle the situation in whatever ways that they want. INFPs prefer and almost always go with the morals, the values, the ethics in regards to a situation. Let's see. I can answer that one real quick. What kind of dog do you have? I don't own a dog. I can barely take care of myself, let alone another animal. But the dog in the house is it's like beige and white colored. He was 76 pounds, not particularly tall or anything, not super fat either. He was apparently he was a rescue dog, but he's got blue eyes. That I sincerely doubt that means anything for dog breed, but he has these milky white blue eyes, and he was a rescue dog it was a fighting dog that was not treated very well, and so he was adopted. Let's see, main differences between an INFP and an ENFP. Well, usually in those situations, what I do is I look for the last two functions. Okay, so what would an ENFP preference versus an INFP? Well, an ENFP prefers extroverted thinking, and so the one thing that I noticed about ENFPs throughout my life is that they can have emotional outbursts. Yeah, they can talk about the morals and ethics and values, but it doesn't seem to be the main part of their life. It seemingly, like, if it is, they don't express it that much. It stays inside. When dealing with the general public, or, you know, depending on who it is, you know, that they're talking to in context, they oftentimes, you try to apply the extroverted thinking more than anything else. And so I don't see them get hyper emotional really ever. They try to analyze the feelings. They're more caring about the logistics behind the feelings and the values and the ethics versus actually expressing them and having a real strong attachment to them, because of course extroverted intuition is in the first position, so they care more about the perspectives more than their personal feelings, just in the same way that's what I care about. I care more about the perspectives and possibilities in the abstract versus my own personal logic. I still prefer that. Like I tell people that I'm the master of suspension of disbelief. As long as your story is entertaining, I can most of the time try to ignore any plot holes in your story, you know, regardless. Except for in the case of, what was it, the Return of Skywalker, or the Rise of Skywalker, one of those titles. That one I got irritated by a great deal. So in the case of ENFPs, they care more about the analyzing of the feelings. They care more about the perspectives in the abstract, versus an INFP who tends to wallow more in not just their feelings, but of course the feelings of other people. That was the big difference. And of course ENFPs have not so great memories, especially early on in life, versus INFPs who spend more time ruminating on personal memories, and so they tend to have better memories. Let's see. Sleeping on Lessians is INFP's trait, possibly. I'm not sure what a Lessian is, but I care about people's perspectives because it helps me read people better. It forces them to think about why they are saying something. Yeah. I don't care about your words. I want to know if they are true and why and the why behind them. That makes sense. I'm sure that INFPs also, you know, do that as well. It's just they probably don't do it as much as an ENFP would. How to impress an INFP? Talk to them, show engagement in what it is that they're saying. Actually pretend, at the very least, pretend to be interested in whatever it is that they're talking about, because most people don't want to listen to them for long periods of time. So if you can hold a conversation with an INFP for longer than, like, let's say 30 minutes, they'll probably find you very special. In my opinion. as for, INFP males, it's, it 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 requires less, or it takes less to impress them, because, as I said before, most INFP males don't get listened to because they aggravate people just from the topics of conversation. INFP versus an INTP, I don't know, like, which one's bigger than the other. That might help in determining a winner there. What are some things you shouldn't say or do to an INFP? Well, I mean, shouldn't say or do, like, to upset them, like, if that's the chief concern. If you don't want to upset an INFP, then don't try to poke holes in their stories. Don't try to poke holes in why they believe things are right or wrong, because that's going to send you down a philosophical path that they simply are not equipped for. I have talked to INFPs recently, and they, especially recently, I don't know if it's the current, social climate, but they really don't want you to poke holes in it. Like, some things for them are good, some things for them are bad, right, wrong, black and white. That's just how it is for them. And if you try to tell them, well, if you think that this is correct, then you must also think that this is correct, or this or this or that, and then they start getting flustered, and they're like, well, no, those things are bad because I think they're bad. And having a philosophical conversation with them is probably something you'd want to avoid if you're trying to avoid upsetting them. If you do want to upset them, then of course you can go with that. But just being generally rude to other people in their presence, that seems to cause them problems as well. So I was supposed to silence my Discord again, and I did not. Is it desktop notifications? If I just turn that off, like, then it'll be fine. Disable all notification sounds. There we go. Okay. That probably fixed it. Most likely. If we're to maybe be less of a jackass about Brianna's question, INFP and INTPs, like, what are the main differences? Well, the main differences are virtually everything. I mean, sure, they both enjoy the abstract, but one enjoys the abstract regarding personal morals, values, and ethics, and one prefers the abstract about, science, technologies, outer space in general, quantum mechanics, black holes, the whole, things that don't necessarily involve, well, as a matter of fact, things that are specifically, not feelings. So as far removed from feelings as you can get, that's typically what the INTP prefers, versus an INFP who absolutely prefers the emotional impacts of things, situations, scenarios, etc. So they end up usually looking like two completely different people. So there's that. On a more fanciful note, I would say that, sure, an INTP has, would have access to technologies in a fight, and so that's one advantage. However, I would say that, maybe INFPs also were able to recruit allies from the animal kingdom. So who would actually win in a, this fantastical battle? Depends on what planet they're on, I suppose. Out of the 16 personalities, which is the most common mistype, or simply put, all of them? Which is the most common, like, which type do people commonly mistype themselves as? Well, in the MBTI community, that of course would be INFJ, and it's been that way since I started on MBTI, and that was over 10 years ago, so I sincerely doubt that's going to change. Some people have a preference for wanting to be an ENTP, so there's that. For the more common types, no one tends to mistype themselves as that. Abigail thought that she was an ISFJ for a short period of time, but, like, the one-off, the one time I heard an ISFP type themselves as an ISFJ. So there's that. Which personality types frequently mistype themselves? Well, INFP takes the top spot, which circles back to what I was saying before. INFPs are excellent actors. They can see themselves in all kinds of scenarios, all kinds of situations, making certain decisions. And so for them, it can actually be a little bit more difficult to accurately type their aggregate behaviors over the years, because they can essentially choose to be whoever they want. I've never actually eaten at Chipotle. So, and Taco Bell isn't great. But I will eat there. Usually, I'll if I stop at a Taco Bell, I'm always getting whatever promotional stuff that they had. I loved they had these spicy nacho fry things. Right to my hips, let me tell you. As for the Chipotle, the one person I knew that ate Chipotle all the time was an INFP. Her name was Samantha. Let's see. I mean, I'm not sure if that was an INFP. It's INFP Appreciation Day stream, one of those. We're going to talk about the INFPs. Harley, give me another question. I think Harley died, sadly. Let's see, INFPs. What are some good examples of INFP behaviors in movies? Besides Scarlet Witch, I already brought her up. What are some hobbies they commonly have? Crying. Usually crying is a big hobby of theirs. No, Harley's dead. And then they pull them for a while. Yeah, I assume that's to keep drawing attention to the Taco Bell. Rest in peace, Harley. She was a good girl. She was helpful. Other common activities that I have noticed. They oftentimes enjoy supporting other people in their plans and the things that they want to do. That's something that I had noticed over the years. What are the biggest misconceptions about INFPs? That they're INFJs. That's the big one. So how it starts is you get an INFP who takes a Myers-Briggs test, a bad one because they're all bad. Takes the test, they answer in the way that they would prefer to be, so they get the INFJ title. Then they go onto the internet and tell other people that they typed as an INFJ, and it's like, okay, well, now you've got one person who displays primarily INFP behaviors telling people that they're INFJs. The other people, of course, aren't going to take the time out to research whether or not that's true or false, so they're just going to be like, okay, well, clearly this person who says they're an INFJ, that must mean that all INFJs behave like this person, which of course is INFPs. And then there you go. Now all of a sudden INFPs are INFJs. Let's see. Keanu is an INFP. I've never met Keanu Reeves, or I've certainly never watched enough of his acting ability. No, well, actually, no, I have seen enough of his acting ability. Keanu, I love Keanu Reeves. I want to make that perfectly clear. I will watch virtually anything with him in it. His range for acting hasn't been great, let's say. He more or less plays the same character regardless of what movie he's in. That shows me that his preference for introverted feeling and extroverted intuition are not there. Certainly not in that combination. I don't believe Keanu Reeves is an INFP. I would not say. Based on what I have seen from him, I would say he would be closer to maybe an ISFP, maybe. But once again, I don't. I guess I haven't seen enough interviews with him. But INFP, he misses the whole being an excellent actor thing. So, yeah, not saying that he's bad at acting. I'm just saying taking on the form essentially of another human being and mimicking all of the emotional experience that they had. Well, he doesn't seem to have that. Let's see. When is ENTP Appreciation Month to acknowledge true greatness? Every month is ENTP Appreciation Month, and I know that because of the frequent number of people that come to me telling me that they're an ENTP. I just want to make it. I want to make it perfectly clear. If you're in the MBTI community and you go around telling people what you are, especially one of the more uncommon, more mistyped personalities, but you choose to tell people that that's what you are, you're missing extroverted feeling as a preference, because an extroverted feeler understands that if they say something like that, they are open to ridicule and confrontation. You're missing a preference for extroverted feeling. So, just want to point that out. What makes an INFP good at acting? Introverted feeling and extroverted intuition. Those two functions make them. And ENFPs can be great actors as well. They just don't do it as much. They don't sit in those personas for very long, if at all. INFPs prefer the perspectives of other people. So by the time they've hit, like, let's say 20, they have seen a great range of emotional responses from a great number of people. And they catalog them, remember them, and then are able to more accurately mimic the behavior, emulate a personality. Any test you choose, I've taken every one known. I was mistyped in every test I took. I joined the Discord. Best $20 ever spent after 10 years of mistype misinformation. Yeah, there's quite a bit of that. The tests are bad for a number of reasons. The main one being that people, of course, are going to answer in ways that they would like to perceive themselves. And most people don't understand that when you have a lead preference in a function, that's what your life is. Whether that's introverted thinking, whether that's extroverted feeling, whether it's introverted intuition, extroverted intuition, sensing, so on and so forth. When someone lives that way, it's sometimes difficult for them to understand that that's how they do things, because that's how their life has been. And so they just think it's normal and that maybe that's what everyone else does. And so when they say to themselves, okay, well, I had an extroverted intuitive thought, twice today. And then they take the test. Well, clearly I must be a preference extroverted intuitive. And that's certainly not how it works for having a lead preference for extroverted intuition, as I'm well aware. Tends to do more damage than good, by the way. Which personality type makes the greatest comedians? Well, it certainly depends on your humor. And in case of the most famous ones, any comedian that is willing to be edgy, go against the grain, say things that are politically incorrect, those are, of course, the funniest ones. My favorite comedian was ENFP Greg Giraldo, who had a bit of a drug addiction, overdosed, went into a coma, then passed away. And I actually made I put together a collection of some of my favorite jokes that he's done over the years, and YouTube wouldn't let me, of course, post it. Copyright. Which I figured having it as like a tiny square on like the bottom right of the screen with having some of his pictures in the background was going to be good enough to get past that, but apparently not. But there was no joke that was off the table for him. He would talk about race, politics, people being dumb or whatever. The whole range. I absolutely recommend Greg Giraldo's work for anyone. So anyone that's willing to do that. So, of course, politically incorrect people, let's say Dave Chappelle, for example, he seems very ENTP to me. Then there was Tosh or something. He's more dry on the humor, but it's, he does some funny work as well. Please do it on Discord if it's permitted in the... Yeah, I could, like, stream, you know, something on my Discord. It's not going to be a problem. About to do that for... After the Dungeons & Dragons campaign is over, which I'm just going to go ahead and end it next week, and then we'll have some big, grand, epic battle or something. And then the tutorial campaign will be over. And then we'll go back to regular stuff. Let's see. What's the next one for INFP? Appreciation Day. Appreciate your local INFP, if you know one. They're not terribly common. One second. Alright. Don't know if anyone could hear that or not. I just assumed that if I pressed that big mute button, then it would work. Six thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up. Rachel, you are a wonderful promoter. Some female actresses should be INFP. No idea. I'm sure there's a great number of INFPs in Hollywood. For sure. I would think. Although, nowadays, we don't necessarily need good actors anymore for, you know, the modern audiences, as they like to call it. So, as long as you know, fill a role, then that's good enough for them. More often than not these days. So, it's... which leads me to another thing. Let's go ahead and keep it INFP related. INFPs, you know, like I said before, you know, INFPs could be good at these specific jobs, you know, being a vet, psychologist, therapist, being a doctor, etc. They could be great at those things, but of course not every INFP is going to make it there. And the reason, of course, being that we live in a more streamlined society nowadays. So back in the day, like when I was growing up, a doctor was a scientist. They did all the work. They did the experiments. They kept, you know, the research notes. They were a scientist that helped people, that saved lives, right? That's what being a doctor meant. That's what it meant to me growing up. But nowadays, a lot of doctors are just, some of them you could say are just straight up incompetent at the position. They're not scientists anymore. The jobs that we have nowadays can be more or less filled through reading a manual, following certain procedures that have already been made. So nowadays, bye, Abigail. It was nice to have you here for a short period of time. It's all procedurally done nowadays, and so you know, most doctors, you go in to see one and you tell them what your symptoms are. They type into a computer what your symptoms are, and then the computer spits back what the most likely diagnosis is, and boom, you're done. And that's the job. And of course, those are the same people that only became doctors because of the money, the money or the prestige. And so they're just it's not how it is anymore. Same goes with INFPs and certain those kinds of professions. It's not that they wouldn't be great at it. It's that they already have people there that are, in quote, good enough. And so there's not, you know, as many openings. There's not as many opportunities for those kinds of positions, which is sad, because now you have people that aren't great at the job taking those positions. So, pretty irritating. Bollywood, I'm familiar with. Nollywood, don't know about that one. And there could be less, but it's more, INFPs would have a preference for acting, and so they would always be putting themselves in those positions, or more often than not would be putting themselves in positions to where their acting talent could be picked up. Yes, the connoisseurs of empathy. Oh, a Nigerian Hollywood. Got it. Yeah, I would be a big fan of, essentially being Dr. House minus the limp. Like, that sounds really fun. Most people are private. So, ENFPs are more interested in how you're doing rather than how they're doing. And so, they're less interested in posting about their personal life. They're more interested in posting about other people's personal lives. Ven is a relatively private person, for example. Which, she would be here, but apparently there are things more important than the stream today. So. But most of the time, I mean, most people post about whatever on media, especially like things like Facebook. But that's usually like ESFJs, for example. They love posting stuff on Facebook. Yeah, Ben doesn't even have Facebook, apparently. Even I have a Facebook. Granted, I don't post anything there, but... Between introverted feeling preferenced people, which feels sad or depressed more often? Well, that really depends on... I mean, more often than not, you're going to find depressed INFP males. Specifically INFP males, not all INFPs, just the males are more likely to be depressed. ISFP males, they still live in, they still prefer to live in reality. They pay more attention to their surroundings and what's going on with people in certain basic regards, and so they tend to get more acclimated to a social environment. And they can get depressed. It usually hits them, from what I noticed, it usually hits them, the males anyway. It hits them anywhere between like 22 and 30. Usually they start getting depressed. And once again, for the same reasons, they look at their life and they're like, oh, well, this isn't quite going the way I wanted it to go. And they get a little sad. Oh, right. And Ben's hair was more important than the live stream today. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out if I'm an INFP or ENFP. Well, I would go... The first thing I would look for, if I was typing you officially, is I would look for your level of neuroticism over time. That's a big one. The neuroticism is caused by constantly remembering those bad experiences and then just going back and forth, reliving them, imagining scenarios in which it could have been different, and then the emotions that came with it. So constantly remembering your own negative feelings about things leads to neuroticism. Self-doubt, depression, anxiety, etc. ENFPs don't wallow in their feelings very much, and so they go out and do stuff. Now, that's not to say that ENFPs can't wallow in their feelings, because sometimes really bad things happen to them, and they lose all desire to roll out of bed. Because an INFP, or not an INFP, an ENFP, most of the time, their life has been about sacrifice. You know, if they grew up in a normal community, normal household, they want to help people. They're constantly wondering about other people, you know, the perspectives of other people, and so they tend to get really invested, and they usually go with a martyrdom route, and they want to sacrifice themselves to help other people, and that's very common behavior in ENFPs. But they actually do it. An INFP is more likely to ruminate on whether or not they should be sacrificing their life for people. And then usually by the time they finally made a decision, the moment's passed. And so they, then they get sad over missing an opportunity, and then, goes back to the neuroticism and then all that kind of a thing. The point is that if I was wondering if I were an INFP or an ENFP, I would look for being honest, brutally honest with myself, what my level of neuroticism was. Which statistic would you say is most accurate for MBTI population representation? The results are more screwed than a bolt without a nut. Well, I would say none of them. The best, the absolute most that I will do is draw data from the website, from the Myers-Briggs.org website. And they have some funny statistics. Even then, I mean, yeah, sure. Introverted sensing, yeah, that's going to be a big part of the population. And that's not just from, reading all the data from, different websites. That's just from my personal experience throughout my life. Most people I have talked to have been introverted sensors. But there was a study in Germany, and they came to the conclusion that 10% of the German population was ENTP. And I talked to somebody from Germany about this study, and of course they laughed, and I said, well, is your country on fire? And she said, told me she looked out the window, no, it's not on fire. And I'm like, okay, well then, your population isn't 10% ENTP. Otherwise it would have been. How is inferior extroverted thinking versus tertiary extroverted thinking? Well, so in the case of the ENFP, they're more go-getters. They don't since they're not wallowing in, feelings, they're not wallowing in them. They're going out and they're getting what is mostly agreed upon, pre-established productivity. So going out, getting work, getting a job, maybe picking a career or something eventually at some point in time, making the money, and then taking care of people. So they eventually have that preference for, pulling their life together and making sure that they can financially support other people. That comes from the extroverted thinking. Whereas INFPs, they would like to do those things, and I hope that they do. I mean, like I said, there's great paths for, career opportunities that they can, get to, but they spend more time wallowing in those kinds of decisions versus actually getting off their ass to do it. So, matter of fact, I typed an INFP recently who, 29, lived with the parents. I'm not saying that's bad necessarily, because obviously we live in a current day society where things are a little messed up. There's other countries in the world where families generationally live together in the same house. Makes sense. But with an ENFP, they're not going to be very happy with the idea of just staying in someone's house and then not providing. They need to do something. They need to feel their value and their worth. And so ENFP is going to go out there, find work, come up with some new business idea to make money. Nobody focused on that. It was on fire in the 40s. Meh. It was. But that wasn't well, no, because if Hitler had ENTP advisors, they probably would have suggested a more diplomatic approach with subterfuge involved to win the war. Just some critical errors were made on an advisory level. INFP's humor style. Most of my experience with INFPs have been females, and I could say virtually anything and get them to laugh, so I'm not sure what they're... Maybe romantic comedies. Maybe that's their style. What do we think of that? How does the extroverted feeling tertiary in the ENTPs differ from the TE tertiary in ENFPs? Well, there are two completely different functions. One cares about the pre-established knowledge and correct course of action, you know, the pre-established logic. Whereas one cares about manipulating people to get them to do what they want. So those would be the differences. One is about people, one is about things. So there's that. ENTPs prefer their own, when it comes to absolutely logical situations, an ENTP prefers their own reasoning. They need to understand it first. They need to take time to think about it and then come to a decision. Whereas an ENFP finds out what the most likely correct answer is and then rolls with it and then moves on to the next thing. So that's how they would differ in that. Now, that's not to say that ENFPs don't have some measure of extroverted feeling like everyone does. Most people that are involved with modern day society have somewhat of a preference for extroverted feeling. And the ones that really don't have a preference for it, they exclude themselves from society in as many ways as they can. Now, granted, even if they try to do that, they still have to, do things like work. Then they have to talk to people, interact with others. But even then, I always suspected that ENFPs had a fair preference for extroverted feeling. I mean, you would have to, especially if you're caring about the perspectives of other people. That alone will give you points towards extroverted feeling. Just you have to listen to other people, and then if you're wanting to maintain a connection with that person so you can keep getting more information, you have to be neutral, keep it calm and good so that they keep spilling their guts to you. So, even then, they should be pretty well practiced. My international friends say I am the most sarcastic and dry guy they know, so can say yes, that's true. About Germans being dry. I've not met too many Germans. Most of the Germans I met was on an MMO back in the day called Star Wars Galaxies. They were a big fan of that game. German humor, I wonder, anyone else seen Hogan's Heroes? That was a very old sitcom. Still watched on TV Land. Assuming TV Land's still a thing. Has anyone else played Armored Core? This game's been kicking my butt. Normally I don't bother with the arena missions, but apparently you need them for these OST chips to do the operating system tuning on your Armored Core. What else about INFPs? Or if no one's really that interested in INFPs, you can go ahead and just ask me questions about anything. I guess that's fine too. INFPs just aren't as popular a topic. No one really wants to... I prefer underdog positions, right? I promise that's not sexual. I prefer the paths less traveled, the topics less discussed. I want to talk about things that people find uninteresting. I want to know why they're uninteresting. And of course, INFPs aren't all doom and gloom, super feels all the time. They can still act like, normal human beings. Not often. But they can. One that I knew wanted to create their own form of music. Using, of course, technology to do so. And they wanted to find this unique sound that made people feel whatever it was that she wanted them to feel. And so that's cool, right? I kind of also want a beer. Is that allowed on stream? Kind of doubt it. I can't. I mean, this isn't. I specifically put this was not made for children, so. Yeah. I want the underdog stories. That's what I prefer. Did they reach success? Oh, I don't know. I didn't talk to them for a super... I think I was in contact with them for maybe a solid year, but then just kind of... stopped talking. Yeah. So yeah, INFPs can be seemingly very normal human beings, especially the well-adjusted ones that you meet out in public. I mean, as long as they had a more or less normal life, they can turn out to be very normal people. My thoughts on antidepressants, because of course almost every INFP I've talked to was on some form of antidepressant. Don't take them. Yeah, they can, elevate your mood, but what are the long-term side effects of taking these medications? Especially when you just simply need to find a place in which you can express yourself in a healthy manner. Or, if you're an INFP male, there's all kinds of self-help stuff. You don't even have to read a lot of it. I mean, you could watch YouTube videos for self-help, or you can just come talk to me. Now, of course, you'd have to take the advice I give you, but there's other ways to bring yourself up besides the pills, because eventually the pills are going to fail, and they're going to hurt you in ways that you didn't think were possible. I was on SSRIs from 17 to 21. And I imagine that I actually do have some long-term psychological effects, or I'm experiencing them currently. One thing I had noticed was the tremors. I was on some form of lorazepam or Ativan, Xanax for about 4 years. I was always taking something, anti-anxiety medication, and it was the tremors. I was getting tremors from taking them after a period of time. I don't think it's likely to change your MBTI, your core cognitive processes. I don't think it's likely to change that unless you took them for a long enough period of time with a high enough dose, and then it's going to, permanently change the way your brain functions, probably in a very negative way. But is it going to all of a sudden give, like, let's say an INFP the same preference of introverted thinking as an ESTP? No. Yeah. Well, I mean, not necessarily extroverted intuition. Could be extroverted sensing, because it's gonna be similar. Like, extroverted sensors don't, especially when they're young, most of them don't want to sit there and just look at books all day. Even, like, let's take an ISFP who does their best to, be agreeable with other people and do as instructed. Even they don't want to do that. They would rather be doing something else: painting, gardening, learning to sew something, knitting, anything more productive than learning about history. Most of them don't care. They would rather be focused on something else. Same with, young ESFPs. They don't care at all about what's going on in these books. They want to experience those things. They want to be involved in it. They want to see it with their own eyes, feel it. That's what they would prefer. And so, yeah, you could get an ADHD diagnosis from, extroverted sensors or extroverted intuitive. Once again, it's not something that needs medication. It just needs a different approach to teaching someone. just teach them differently. Try something else and see if it works. Just give it a shot, see if it helps. Which of course most people are not. Most people in positions of authority and power are not prone to changing things. One, because it's usually expensive. Two, they don't really care. So why would they do that? Yeah, Xanax is still, from what I understand, it's still a popular medication. Which I don't recommend being on those medications either. Anything that can permanently alter your brain chemistry is something that I usually don't recommend. You just don't know the possibilities, how it's going to affect you over the long term. Could be good, could be bad. Most of the time bad, though. What's the next one? Anything MBTI related. Or ask me anything. I'm eating a salad. Yeah, it was really funny. When I was on Xanax, uh, I was staying the night at someone's house, and they asked if they could have one, and they was like, well, what does it do for you? And I was like, well, it just chills me out, no anxiety. And so I give him one, and he crushes it into a rough, a very rough powder, and he snorts it. I'm like, that's not gonna do anything for you. Chemical influence in the brain? Well, there's lots of things that influence. Oh, no. Sorry, I misread that. My eyesight's terrible. Chemical imbalance in the brain thing. Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on what the balance is supposed to be, I suppose. Like, I sincerely doubt anything is exactly 50-50 to be considered balanced. But I do believe that I do believe that certain things that happen to us can cause certain chemicals to be released that can, of course, be either good or bad. One, for example, would be cortisol. It seems to me that most people nowadays are experiencing high levels of cortisol in the blood, which causes all kinds of effects over a long enough period of time. Usually, it's weight gain, water retention, things like that. But when bad things happen to you, your body tries to compensate. And usually those compensations create an imbalance in the brain, most certainly. But I don't think that it can only be solved by just, getting on the right, set of medications. I think that if you were to alleviate the problems in real life, then your body would go back to a normal state of being. Let's see. Thoughts on objective personality and how the functions interact. Objective personality. You're talking about like the website or the YouTube channel. I don't watch their stuff. I don't watch anyone's stuff. Usually, it puts me to sleep. But I'm sure that they are like most of the MBTI community, and it's wrong. I would just assume. I mean, maybe they are right. Maybe they are. In which case, if they're correct, then great. You should go there and listen to their stuff. But most of the time they're like, yeah, introverted intuition is all about seeing into the future because they're essentially magical creatures, INFJs and ENFJs, INTJs, ENTJs. In which case, no one's a magical creature. We're talking about a system that categorizes people based on a preference for certain functions. And no, INFJs can't see into the future. Neither can INTJs or anyone else with a preference for introverted intuition. Let's see here. As an INFP grows, do they gain strength over their tiers? I think that happens to most people. As we get older, the awful novel events that cause us to cry or experience, chest pains or what I'm trying to remember the last time I actually cried. Uh, all the physical symptoms, the events that cause those things. we live in a terrible world, and you're eventually going to be calloused towards all the horrible things that happen on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, they'll eventually get better. With mundane everyday, like, yeah, senseless killings in the streets, or the starving kids in Africa, or the riots going on, or Donald Trump being elected as president. They'll get over it, and eventually those horrible things that they consider are horrible, they'll toughen up to it, and they don't. There's only so many tears you've got, right? Thoughts on melatonin? My thoughts on it? I am certain that in most cases, people regulate, their bodies naturally regulate the amount of melatonin they should be having. I never took melatonin gummies, ever. I'm always worried about my brain chemistry. But for some people, it helps them sleep, so, that's good, I guess, so long as there's not some long-term effects. Let's see. Was this morning fitting of my type you affirmed? I shall say no more. Those who weren't there missed out on an experience. Yes. C.S. Joseph said any users can predict the future because of seeing all the possibilities. I suppose in a very technical sense, anyone can predict the future. I can predict that in 5 minutes, a spaceship from the Warhammer 40,000 universe is going to park right next to the house here, and then they're going to take me on an adventure to become a space marine. I predict that that will happen. Is it going to happen? My assumption is probably not, as cool as that might be. I don't think that's going to happen. So I suppose anyone can predict the future. Whether or not someone can accurately predict the future, well, pattern recognition, of course, would be helpful, and the more complex the prediction, the more unlikely it is to be true. But if you are persistently considering all the possibilities of what can happen, then yes, eventually you'll get some of them right. Pattern recognition being the domain of introverted thinking. So, as a thought experiment, what MBTI could or would the USA be as a whole, and Europe, Russia, and China? That is an interesting question, and it has a very easy answer. All of them would be introverted sensing, because that's what most people use to stay alive in a society. They have a preference for introverted sensing. Your societies cannot function without people who have a preference for doing the same crap over and over and over again. We need those people. Melatonin puts you to sleep but gives you very vivid nightmares. Well, I had something similar with a brand of wine. It was called Apocrypha or something. It was I bought it because it looked really cool. But I drank that for 2 nights, and both nights the craziest vivid nightmares. Would you religion is a very SI thing? Would I say that religion is a very introverted sensing thing? Yes. It's mostly given life by people that believe it because they grew up being told that they should believe it. People following the patterns, routines, etc. Most things stay alive because of introverted sensing. And yes, that would be a very introverted sensing thing to do. My professor said that predictions of the future is impossible. Well, I mean, is anything really impossible? I mean, we live in a world of quantum mechanics. I don't think anything can be impossible. Let's see. I think someone commented on my age earlier. Yeah, I'll be 36 this year, and I'm not happy about it. Or should I just start aging in reverse, so later this year I'll be 34? We'll go in reverse for the next, like, 10 years. We'll see how that goes. My birthday is almost... it's unfortunate. October 3rd. What do I think of Enneagram? I think that I don't know enough about it to have any real strong thoughts on it. What I had read, though, it was trying to measure traits in someone that could easily change based on their current living situation. That's what I had noticed. I'm sure that there's a great deal more to it than that, but I'm just not familiar. I specialize in MBTI.
Oh.
Harley, are you alive?
I am. I've been alive. I've been typing to you in the chat.
Oh, goodness.
I also want to add on to that. It's a very vague set of things, and what makes me not like it so much is you can apply it to literally anybody, versus MBTI, which is cognitive functions. Which ones do you actually use the most?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a friend who has TINE, but gets 3 with a ridiculous wing. I'm like, but that person's not emotional at all in any way.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's kind of wishy-washy at best, based on what I had read, which wasn't very much. Thank you, Moonglobes, for your $5 donation. It absolutely helps keep my things like alcohol addiction alive. And
that also helps him eat more salads.
Yeah, or salads, I guess. Yes. Lord knows I need to lose like 20 pounds. Square burgers buy guns per capita, 6 feet? Maybe. Yeah, the one time I took an Enneagram test, it wanted money at the end of it, and I laughed. John Lukovich, approach to the Enneagram. Thank goodness we have the internet. John Lukovich and sexual subtypes. It's a thread on Reddit. So would my Enneagram be able to tell me what my sexual preferences are? Because that would be interesting to find out. Which reminds me, on the topic of that, Jordan Peterson, I was once watching one of his lectures on YouTube, and he talked about how the reason women wear red lipstick was because it reminded men of ripe fruit, and I guess that attracted men to them. I said, no, there's no way, Jordan. I don't even like red lipstick at all. So that can't be. So I'm already doubting that, that's why they would wear it. And I thought about it. I'm like, well, I don't like red fruit, but I like black fruit. Coincidentally, I like black lipstick. I was like, okay, maybe it's starting to make sense to me. Let's see here. Violet, you're 6 feet tall? My goodness. Can you handle 180 questions? I probably could. I would be very bored, but... Thoughts on people who call themselves empaths? So, to have empathy, this is my definition of empathy. Or maybe a more simplified way to put it. Feeling what someone else is feeling. Now, in terms of an actual psychic connection, now I don't believe that necessarily anything is impossible. So maybe at some point humans developed some kind of, some humans anyway developed a gene mutation that allowed them to somehow psychically pick up the emotions of other people, thereby, experiencing those emotions, and we would call that empathy. Now, what's more likely the case is if we're talking about an INFP being an empath, we're talking about someone who can pick up on what is most likely that someone else is experiencing, emotionally speaking, and then they feel that. So they use their imagination to come to a determination on whether or not someone is feeling something at all. And then they would experience it. They actually go through the feeling. So if someone is sad, they can pick up on the clues that the person's sad, and then they feel sad. And so that would be what I would consider, practical empathy, I suppose. Oh, Violet's 5'7", still tall. You're a tall gal. Metric versus Imperial. My response to that is Murica. And that's it.
Are you ready to laugh, Urchin?
I'm always ready to laugh.
I am I stand at a whole 5'3.5".
I think that's about average for the United States.
If it's average, then how come everybody and their uncle are taller than me?
Because you're around taller people, or you may not be 5'3.5". Is that with heels?
No, sir.
Not that I would expect you to be wearing heels.
I'm actually wearing heeled boots right now.
Oh, goodness.
So later on, if you hear ow and a big smashing sound, I probably fell.
Oh, okay. What are you wearing heels for? Favorite films? I'm sure I have the same enjoyment of certain films as most other people, like Lord of the Rings, for example. I was a big fan. I'm hearing a lot of background noise from you.
Yeah, I was about to mute again, but I wanted to inform you that I am driving to my mom's.
Oh.
So I will be here, but not be here.
Okay, bye.
Okay, let's go over I'll be here, but not be here part.
Yeah, you'll be there, but not really. One of my favorite movies was The Lost Boys. I watched it when I was very young, and I thought it to be a very romantic movie as a child. And so I usually watch The Lost Boys at least once a year. I also really liked The 13th Warrior. I enjoyed the character development from Antonio Banderas' character. Big fan of character development, not necessarily the movie. Let's see. Since most people are censors, why are TikTok parents and GTA videos in real life are getting increasingly common, even though strong NE users, from my experience, are rare? Why are TikTok pranks and GTA videos in real life are getting increasingly... Well, I mean, that makes sense. That doesn't... I mean, yes, those videos are going to get more views because there are more censors. That's it. I kind of... It seems like you kind of answered your own question there. Yes, extroverted intuitive users are less common. They're not super rare. You would... What is it, like nearly 25% of the population is supposed to be intuitive, and most of those are extroverted intuitives. And of course, most of those are INFPs and ENFPs. So they're uncommon, but yes, those TikTok videos and GTA videos are going to be posted by censors and enjoyed by censors. Let's see. Do you think there's a correlation between racism and sensing preferences? Well, introverted sensing, most certainly. Like, if you grow up and you're always told that, you know, to never trust Vietnamese people because they will take your money from you or they'll try to shortchange you all the time. And if you have a preference for introverted sensing, you are going to grow up having known that information or believing that information because you were always told that. And so you will have that. Now, in terms of actual racism, like the belief that one race is superior to others, unless you've got people telling you that every day, that this race is just better than all the other races, then you're probably not going to be a racist. However, you might believe some racially insensitive traits about other people, which racism, of course, has spread in definition. It's not what it was when I was growing up. But, you know, being racially insensitive, sure. I think introverted sensing could be a big part of that, sure. In other cases, you could think that an introverted thinker is about pattern recognition, and if they notice a specific pattern with a specific race of people, then they may come up with some racially insensitive commonalities or biases against them, possibly. So there's that as well. Let's see. For most part, cultural, for most part, historical reasons. Racial insensitivity. That's something we experience every day. Especially when I get told that I'm the white devil. I'm like, yeah, why not? What's next? What would a society made up only of ENTPs look like? A raging inferno, I assume. Like, there would be virtually no consistency in life, so there would be very little in the ways of agriculture, general farming, or production of, you know, usual goods and services. It wouldn't look very good. As a matter of fact, it probably wouldn't even be able to start. Or maybe you could just think, you know, any of the Fallout games would probably be accurate as well. I bet your McDonald's in Germany is better than our McDonald's here. So... What else we got here? See, usually I have an assistant that finds all the questions to ask. El Blanco Beelzebub. It's the white Beelzebub? Is that what Blanco means? I'm just trying to use context here. You get strudel and beer at some of the McDonald's. That's amazing. We get really bad food that, you know, harms you to eat it. So... Alright, if anyone hasn't played Armored Core 6, I'm going to do a mission. As far as I know, German... I just assume that most other countries have a higher standard, like a higher quality of food. I just assume. Maybe I'm just sick of the food here. I don't know. And beer at a cerveza at the Spanish McDonald's.
Something's not right, 621.
The battle's over already.
Find out what's going on.
Find out what's going on. For those that were thinking of getting Armored Core 6, which I assume virtually no one in the chat was, it's like Dark Souls for robots.
Raven. I've identified the target. That's the mercenary who took your name. Let's see how far they can fly.
I would think that most intuitives would want to do something different. I know I do. I don't want to just do the same stuff that everyone else is doing, but that could just be because I have a disdain for introverted sensing, and so I just hate the idea of doing the same thing as everyone else.
We're not here to take back the Raven name. We'll see if you can do it justice.
Looks like we found your license's original owner. Tie up the loose end, 621.
I'm getting wrecked.
No repair kits remaining.
Have you mistyped as an ENFP? Not even once. I take, before I make a determination about who I am as a person, I take a very brutal, honest look at myself. No, ENFPs would be far more productive than I am. So, yeah, I was never in doubt. And I had some good examples of an ENFP. My father, being an ENFP, he always was trying to take care of the family by whatever means that he could do. And of course, he'd always try to, get financials, find financial gains through whatever, unique means that he would come up with. But he was always concerned.
Main system.
But no.
In combat mode.
I had never thought to myself that I really cared about the emotions or feelings, prospectively speaking, of other people. They can be helpful, most certainly, but do I have any personal, emotional, vested interest in the feelings of others? No. I typically not. I imagine if I had a wife someday, I probably would be. Some degree. But now I'm old. It would be real great if I could actually stun targets without needing the sword. Let's see. Jeez. The entire time I played Armored Core, every time there was a boss fight, it always seemed to me that no matter what, my machine was too weak. I wish more INFPs were here tonight. Well, they're too busy eating ice cream and watching sad movies to be talking to us on the live stream. Although I should have invited Druid.
Main system. Activating combat mode.
I normally live stream. Well, this is the third live stream that we've done. And I just do them at around noon my time on Saturdays. Which, if they end up being worth it and popular enough to do, then I could just do them more frequently. Maybe twice a week, 3 times a week, because, it's easier for me, and it gives people the impression that I'm actually, human. Which may or may not be true. Although I would need to find out what YouTube's policy is on drinking during a live stream. Because if it comes down to it, I'm probably going to choose the drinking over doing a live stream. So, just saying.
Either way, you never spread your wings. At least not yet.
1 AP at 50%.
What's the next one? But yeah, live streams Saturdays around noon, not Eastern, Western, Pacific time. Any random hot takes? I don't know how hot it would be. ENTJs or psychopaths? That's my hot take. I don't normally get people who disagree, but some do. Of course, mistyped, people that think they're ENTJs say, no, I'm not a psychopath. And I'm like, well, it's because you're not an ENTJ.
I'm back.
She back for now.
Don't do that. But yes.
After dark, swearing and drinking is permitted. Huh. And see, I wouldn't suspect that there would be many ENTPs in lawyer positions, and the reason for that is the amount of work and effort that's required. That's a lot. There's a lot involved in that. A lot of schooling, a lot of training, and doing that kind of a thing. There's a lot to it. And to find an ENTP who was willing to throw away fun in their life to be a lawyer, unlikely. I would say probably not. Most lawyers are introverted intuitives and introverted sensors.
Also, that's not including all the work you have to take home with you as well.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of people don't understand that. Lawyers actually do have to bring it home.
Yeah. Like it's tons of work and you have no life. And it's like, what ENTP is going to sacrifice a life for that? Pretty much none. Let's see. I wouldn't tell you if I wasn't a fact. I want you to get all the moolah. You deserve it. Oh, thank you, Rachel. As an ENTP, how was high school for you? What were your grades like? So I was able to make some deals with some of my teachers, not all of them, obviously, because some of them were very, they were sticklers about doing homework. So I didn't do homework. And even though I grew up in a household where I was physically punished for not doing homework or not having good grades, I still refused to do it. And so, as you can imagine, when I was going to school, your homework was like 60% or more of your grade. So it didn't matter if you aced the test. It didn't matter if you proved to everyone that you understood the material and that you had it figured out. They didn't care. What they care about is obedience. And I am not a very obedient person. So my grades were, at best, physical education, PE class, like everybody gets an A for that, so I don't even count that. But most of my grades were D's. So had the tests, they would, of course, talk to, family members. They say, well, I don't understand. Does he just not do homework? And the answer was, well, yeah. I apparently, according to stories from my family, when I was 6 or 7, I told the principal of my whatever grade school, I think it was called Fairview. That was in Modesto, California. And I apparently told them that there was more to life than homework. And I apparently kept that same reasoning as I got older. So ENFPs, generally are better at school. They have more of an idea of what being productive is like. They have a better idea, and so they prefer to be productive. Whereas I prefer to talk to people, which isn't always very productive. So point is that my grades were not great in high school at all. On the bright side, I got to know everybody. That was fun. I knew guys from the football team. I got to know some of the gals, the cheerleaders. I got to know all the nerds in the games club, for sure. I got to know a great number of people. People knew who I was. I was also being helped in skipping school, and so usually after first period, there would be someone over the speakers telling me to come to the office to be picked up. And so I was not in school very often either. Let's see. Yeah, we got that one. Some people, they get paid to argue, and that's great. But for an ENTP, there's more to life than literally sacrificing all the enjoyment so that you can make some money. For an ENTP, the amount of work that's required, the commitment that's required to become a bar certified lawyer, that's a lot. It's an insane amount. And it's not like other personality types can't argue. For example, Steven Crowder, if anyone knows who he is an ESTJ, and that's what he enjoys doing, is arguing with people. We also have an ESTJ in my Discord that likes arguing with people. I also know a great number of ISTPs that enjoy arguing with people. It's what you're arguing about is usually more important to the ENTP than just the arguing. But no, it requires a great deal of focus and drive to become a lawyer and to stay a lawyer. It takes a great deal, and that's just not in the preferences for an ENTP. I'm not saying it's impossible. If the ENTP got a leg up and they made it super easy and they got to take the cases whenever they wanted to, like they'd take let's say 4 cases a year, and they just made a lot of money, and then they went off and lived their own life doing whatever it is they want to do all the drugs and the drinking every night and having a harem, etc. Then yeah, sure, like that would make more sense for an ENTP lawyer. But if it's a ENTP lawyer that's just working all the time, doesn't have much of a social life, and they're working 70 hours a week, no, like that's you've gone outside of the preference for extroverted intuition. You've now gone into a preference for introverted intuition or introverted sensing, because that's what we're talking about here is preferences. What's the next one? Did you go to college? What was your major? Psychology. That's what I was going for. Of course, I didn't stay in college. I was there for like a year, and then bounced out. Now, I bounced out not because I just didn't necessarily want to do it, which I didn't. I didn't want to be there anymore. But where I was living, I had to drive an hour away to get to the college, and I was not being financially supported in enough of a way to be able to keep doing that. So I was just like, yeah, screw it, I'll do it later, and then I never did. Let's see. That's why ENTJs are rare. A few that I might have met behaved psychopathic. Well, so I was just explaining this the other day, why ENTJs are psychopaths, and this was in contrast as to why I don't believe that ESTJs are psychopaths. Well, there's a bit of a difference. So, if we break it down by function, we do what I call, of course, the MBTI math. Let's go ahead and break this down. Extroverted thinking in the lead position, followed by introverted intuition, followed by extroverted sensing, followed by introverted feeling. So as we know, if you've watched my channel long enough, you know that any function that's in the 4th position is what I call the disdain function. The person is aware that it exists, but they don't want to deal with it. They don't like it. They would rather it be removed from their life altogether in most cases. So it's something that goes against whatever the lead function is. So in this case, the extroverted thinking is all about efficiency, getting quick answers, and then moving on, right? So we take that, combine that with introverted intuition, which is about plans, goals, and ambitions for the user. So what you're looking at just from the first 2 functions is someone that desires maximum efficiency with a bent towards their own personal success. So as you can imagine, these 2 functions don't care about other people. That's bad enough. And then followed by extroverted sensing, which is dealing with the practical and pragmatic. Well, those are synonyms. I don't know why I said it that way. So dealing with practical concerns. So if something is valuable to the ENTJ, they keep it. If it's not valuable, they throw it away. Most people in an ENTJ's life are not going to have that value. Personal connections, things like that. That's that is not helpful in their life. They care more about their personal success and getting there as fast as humanly possible. So once again, not dealing with people anymore. And then introverted feeling, which is where they would get somewhat of a moral code, ethics, values. They are aware that those things exist, and they don't care about them. They don't want anything to do with it. They all those things do is slow them down, so they don't like them. Or not necessarily that they don't like them, they find them to be a waste of time. So for an ENTJ, you're going to be psychopathic, because those functions tell me that you do not care about feelings, whether they're personal or the feelings of other people. You lack the preferences and cognitive function to really develop enough experience to have those kinds of thoughts, at least not accurate ones. So throw that out. Now compare that to an ESTJ. Of course, maximum efficiency, most certainly, but introverted sensing. Most households, most communities, most families, they put a value on working together as a community, working with your family, being nice to your family, being helpful for family, nepotism, things like that. So automatically, they were trained from an early age. In most cases, not every case, but in most cases, they are trained to care about other people, whether they want to or not, because that's how they were programmed. Then you follow that up with extroverted intuition, which in the third position isn't like it is, being in the first or second position, but they still have a preference for the perspectives of other people. In an advantaged position, though, so they really only care about the perspectives of other people that will benefit them and their plans and goals for life, which, of course, their plans and goals are what they were told their plans and goals were, hence the introverted sensing. But that's usually as far as that goes for an ESTJ. The point is they have two functions that generally support caring about other people. And so even if they were genuinely psychopaths, where they actually didn't experience feelings or emotion, they don't display themselves as such. They still behave in a manner that's contradictory to their own, maybe necessarily wants and needs. And so that would be the difference. But that's why ENTJs are psychopaths. Now, INTJs aren't psychopaths because, of course, the introverted feeling gets moved up from the last position to the third position. So they actually have personal things. Their plans and goals and ambitions for life need to follow a moral, ethical path to get to them still. Now, granted, a lot of INTJs I've known, their morals and values don't necessarily include just being nice to other people just because, but they value things like respect and honor in, some arenas. So there is that. The point is, ENTJs are psychopaths. Let's see. Where are we at? What about homework made it difficult for you to complete it? It was work. Like, homework's not fun. We just got done talking about this in class for like an hour. I don't need to take this home with me. I want to do other stuff. I want to draw or make my own games or other things, planning out when I was going to escape from the house that particular night. Because I was grounded for most of my childhood. I was not allowed to leave the house. I wasn't allowed to have friends. I wasn't allowed to have extracurricular activities. And so I was always trying to escape, coming up with stories, hiding, etc. So I was doing a lot of that. A lot of thinking about anything that wasn't going to help me in that situation. It was me trying to escape my situation. But yeah, homework is homework. It's work, and I'm not interested. Isn't a lawyer supposed to actually work what? I don't know what that one's all about. Can you name some behaviors or other things that play a role in being an ENTP? I think the most common one is a lack of conscientiousness, a lack of responsibility, and not intuitive. Initiative, that's the word. A lack of initiative. So the big problem with being an ENTP is that you imagine all these possibilities, you imagine all these scenarios, you imagine the perspectives of other people, you care about talking to other people and interacting with them at the same time, letting your imagination run free and wild. And then, of course, spending a lot of time thinking about what's most logically going to happen based on what it is that you're trying to think about. When you're doing that, you know what you're not doing? Being productive. You are, in fact, not doing anything productive. You are thinking. And although the abstract is a fun, warm, wonderful place for you to be, it doesn't apply to real life. Not anymore anyway. But back several decades ago, just having that kind of an imagination, that kind of mind could get you pretty far. You could come up with the latest, greatest ideas, and people, and then back in like let's say the 40s or 50s of the United States, the productivity boom where people were coming up with the new inventions or advertisements, things like that. It was a thing back then, and so just having that kind of a mind could get you into those places. Not really an issue. Nowadays, we're full up on certain peoples with certain kinds of minds, and so unless you already know somebody in those positions, you just having that kind of a personality or a behavior isn't going to make you a lot of money. Like you have to get out there and do stuff. And so the big one for ENTP behaviors is the lack of initiative, because they'll just sit there and think, or they'll want to spend time enjoying something. So for me, it was when I was 18 to 23 roughly, my life was about meeting new people and finding new relationships, manipulating people, learning how they, really getting down to the nitty gritty of how they worked and how I could best exploit my advantages in knowing people. Which perceiving dominant would you say is the most bossy? Perceiving dominant, so do you mean like someone that has a dominant perceiving function? Like, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you mean like someone that has the P at the end of their 4-letter acronym? And if that's the case, then I would say the most. That's 8 different personalities, right? And then have the ones that are the most bossy. I have known some ISFPs who had a chip on their shoulder that could be bossy, but in most cases, it's ESFPs are going to be the most bossy. They more often than not every case, but usually the young ones feel entitled to respect and authority without having actually earned anything, and so that's a good number of them, and so they tend to be a little bossier. Drama queens and divas, kind of personality. Let's see here. There were less distractions back then, so it makes sense that ENTPs would be more successful in the past. Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily there were less distractions, because to an ENTP, there's always a distraction, right? There's always something that they could be focusing on that's way more interesting than what they're doing now. But with less people, there were more opportunities. Like back in the 50s, they needed people to fill certain positions. Like it was a workers' market, I think is how they would say it. The employers were fighting other employers to gain your labor. There was a lot of that going on. That's why, it was the greatest economic boom in, U.S. history. That's how it was at the time, which that's not how it is nowadays. It's that time is over. Life is more important than homework. Correct. Homework might get burned in an accidental fire or stolen. Homework is hated by most people. When people hear homework, their souls die out. I'm not a fan of homework unless it's actually going to be something interesting. Now, if you put me in a class for occultism or demonology and you say, here's your homework, research these characters, I'd be like, absolutely. Those are essentially fictional characters that I get to learn about and all the mythological things that they did. Can't wait. That's way more interesting to me than doing homework on math or history or many other subjects for that matter. So it really depends on what it is. What are some behaviors that are very likely indicate that you are an ENTP? Well, besides the lack of initiative, because not like many people have a lack of initiative, and not all of them are ENTPs. It's there's a combination of things. It's certainly throwing away caring, like physical health, for example. That's another one. ENTPs tend to slack on physical health a great deal. Of course, there is a desire to argue, but usually about philosophical things or when someone's just being wrong. But usually an ENTP learns that if someone is that wrong about a very basic subject, it's probably not worth the time to argue with them, because if they couldn't understand why what they're doing was wrong, then you explaining it to them would be A, pointless, and B, probably just upsetting. So there is that. There's a lot of things that can pinpoint you as an ENTP, but that would be a whole mess of things put together that comes to an ENTP diagnosis. But there are, of course, some solo behaviors, some singular behaviors that could point you in that direction, but other personality types also experience that, like ISTPs, for example, that aren't having a good time in life. They can also procrastinate, and they can also seem depressed. They can also bury themselves in activities that would normally, raise their dopamine levels, and of course, usually doesn't work. But and of course, ISTPs also can, argue frequently. So, being any one of the 16 personality types is a culmination of different behavioral traits. So the point is that you could find some behaviors that point you in a direction, but it's not necessarily, any one trait is not going to give someone a diagnosis for a personality. How bossy is an ENFP versus an ESTP? They both have P at the end. Both have the potential, but I would say that an ESTP is more likely to be bossy, because an ESTP believes that they know best, and they usually have accolades to back that up. And so they expect people, especially the older ones, they're going to expect you to listen to what they have to say, because they've lived it, they've been through it, and they believe that they've gone through the adequate amount of investment to have a greater understanding, or a complete understanding of whatever that topic or subject might be. And the last ESTP, like, that was over the age of 60, by the way, that I talked to, he was a welder. And so when it came to trying to teach, like, for example, teach me to do some basic welding stuff, he was very specific about what I should be doing, how I should be holding my hands, and how quickly I should be doing it, how far in should I be, and things like that. Whereas an ENFP would be more caring about your personal feelings on what you're doing, but also extremely caring on making sure that you didn't get hurt, in whatever it is. I'll come back to that question after, my ENFP brother's been doing tattoo artistry for the next 10 years, and I'll find out how bossy he is. Let's see. Actor or director is the dream. That could be cool. ESTJ or ESTP, who's more controlling? ESTJ. And there is no doubt about that. An ESTJ already knows exactly how you should be behaving, because this is how it's always been for the past, 2,000 years. So they already know what you should be doing. Also, ESTJs, thanks to their extroverted intuition, they enjoy micromanagement. So, and if they can make that a job, they usually go for it. So, for example, most of your supervisors at the Walmart are going to be ESTJs. Or assistant managers. They usually try to move up into a manager position. Managing people is what they enjoy. ESFJs also enjoy managing people. However, they're not usually as good at the managing portion of it when it comes to the the numbers and the statistics, the figures, and the profits at the end of the year, those kinds of things. The ESTJs are more concerned with that aspect of their job, and so they tend to make it happen, whereas an ESFJ isn't. ESFJ is more interested in talking to people, making sure everyone's getting along.
Cut to the chase.
Any questions about anything? I guess we've had enough of
This is about the ice worm.
INFP appreciation stream.
Had a run-in with.
Apparently we don't have enough
Folks might
INFPs.
stand a chance if it were just the PCA they were teaming up against.
How to identify an ENFJ versus an ESFJ. That can be difficult, but ENFJs are always looking to move up. That's the one thing that you will notice. ENFJs are far more self-interested than the ESFJ is. ESFJs usually aspire to become whatever it is that they grew up believing they should be. So my father had a wife for 12 plus years or something. She was an ESFJ, and she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, have kids, manage the house. That was her aspiration in life, and she knew exactly what everyone should be doing at all times. Whereas an ENFJ, a lot of the ones that I have spoken with, they want to get into law, criminal defense, damnedest thing. So many of them told me that exact same thing, and want to get into criminal law. Thought that was just strange, I thought. But I figure most ENFJs, their big aspiration in life is to probably marry a famous actor or some kind of a celebrity. I always figure that a lot of them shoot for that. So they want to become, let's say, lawyers, but only so that they can find, a lot of them so that they can find a man who makes a great deal of money. And then they can make a great deal of money together. Kind of a thing. But the point is that the ENFJ is very self-interested, and they're always looking to go up. However, the rest of it is going to be looking roughly the same. They're both very good at dealing with people, managing people, you know, in social settings, of course. That's more specifically what we're looking for. And yeah, they more or less behave similarly in that regard. Of course, as I said, an ENFJ is more self-interested, and they care a lot less about social conventions and doing things because that's how you're supposed to do them. That's how you're supposed to live your life. They just set their sights really high, and they're always caring about moving forward. Let's see. Has there been any mention of ESFPs? I think I did mention ESFPs in terms of being bossy. More like diva bossy, though. Not being the boss, just being a little more aggressive about their wants and desires to other people. Let's see. Why TF do I have feelings as an ENTP? Troll comment. Oh. I have an ENTP that frequents my Discord. Name's Cal. And he has less of an issue discussing his personal feelings. I assume that's because he understands that they don't rule his life. But everybody's got feelings. Even I have feelings somewhere. It's in here, in this general area. What types are most likely to gossip? ESFJ. That's the big one. ESFJs love the gossip. They love talking to people and stirring the pot, as they say. It's a big one. ISFJs less so, but they have no problem talking about it if you're close to them. They'll tell you about what they heard, you know, gossip, rumors. They'll do that. People-oriented. Then, of course, after that, you know, if it serves them, then you would see, you know, ESFPs talking about it. ISFPs would also do it. Me, I don't care that much about people. But, you know, if I hear something and someone asks me, I won't have a problem saying specifically, yes, this is what I heard. But I'm not big into gossip. I certainly don't start rumors or anything. Just not that interested. My ex was an ESFP, I believe. I am traumatized. Yes, I had an ESFP girlfriend at one point, and on more than one occasion I've had a knife pointed at sensitive parts of my body. And yeah, in case you're wondering, no, she wasn't psycho. I'm just that bad of a person. I would say things that they were the truth, but I knew they would upset her, and I was very well aware that she could be a little more emotional and less concerned about the consequences of her actions, and so I should have known better than to say the things that I had said. And that got me in trouble, more often than not. On personality database, take it with a pinch of jizz. Thank you, Rachel. Its ESFJs are the most voted Karen type. Unfortunately, that is the case. Your soccer moms, your Karens, your devoted wives, well, some of them anyways, not all of them, they are ESFJs. And yes, there are ESFJ males. I believe I've at least met one, I think. But, nope, it's primarily a feminine personality. What's my take? No. Most nosy type, the one that's really up in people's business, well, once again, that's going to be your ESFJs. Specifically, ESFJs are up. For them, life is about the moment and what's happened prior to it, and combine that with extroverted intuition, and their whole life can very easily become about other people, because they've got, they don't have the introverted intuition that would plague someone with the desire to always be moving forward and progressing and getting more power or money or what have you. Their life is just people, and there's not a whole lot of self-interest there, and so they tend to get up in people's business. The last ESFJ that I talked to, I was working with at the Xerox building in Austin, Texas, and every time I talked to her, somehow the conversation would always get steered into the direction of, I need to go to one of their weekly get-togethers at their house and meet one of her 4 daughters. And that was, I always wanted to know, oh, are you seeing anybody? Are you involved with someone else? And I'd say no. And then, oh, well, you should come by and spend some time with people and do these things, and I guess marry one of my daughters. So there was that. What's your take on religion? Religion is a tool that can be used for good or bad. In terms of practical use. It would be really neat, though, if some of those religions were true, if some of those mythologies were true. And of course, certainly, as far as I know, the Greek gods did in fact exist. They just lost popularity, therefore they lost power, therefore they're not a big part of everyday life as far as we know. But I live in a world where literally anything is possible. If I can rationalize it, then it should theoretically be possible. And of course, if you're into quantum mechanics, one of the things that that you learn from that is that there are supposed to be infinite realities where anything is possible. So there's easily a reality where the gods walk among us and can possibly switch from reality to reality, as far as I know. I don't know. There's many things in this world I don't know, but I'm always looking out. Let's see here. Where is that urchin you keep describing? I'm not describing any urchin. The Legends of Karen on Lowbrow is a true Karen out in the wild. Never heard of it. Just the one, a different daughter. I think her plan was to show up at like a family barbecue, introduce myself, and then, see if there was any compatibilities between me and one of her daughters. I assume that was her plan. Did you give her the knife first, your ex-girlfriend? No, she had her own knives, so there was no need for me to hand her the murder weapon. Let's see. He keeps describing someone I like and people that typically keep around me because I know where they stand, and he gives me the most chill. Talking about me? Yeah. Have you watched Interstellar? The accuracy proved after was beyond amazing. Yes, I did watch Interstellar. I actually watched it again earlier this year, or at the very least I watched clips of it on YouTube. Yeah, black holes fascinate me. They also terrify me, and so I like black holes. I'm a fan. There's just, I have this idea in my brain. I'm not sure why I have that idea, but I assume it's a culmination of information I've gathered on the subject, that black holes are essentially a tear in reality. Whatever whatever existence is made of, you would find on the other side of that black hole. Whatever it is. Like the foundation in which reality was built is on the other side of the black hole. The possibilities. Truly a staggering number of possibilities. And so I find black holes fascinating. Why was I talking about that again?
I hate to see my babies get scratched.
What's your favorite anime? So, Code Geass is probably overall my favorite anime. There was some romance in it. There was some, of course, there was the superpowers, the mystical abilities. Now, granted, Lelouch did some things that I didn't necessarily agree with, but you know, he did the best that he could as what I assume was a 15-year-old boy, and of course, given the physical appearance of every person, you know, he was, you know, what, like 7+ feet tall or something, and hyper skinny. So he was just doing the best that he could in that situation. But other than that, though, besides Code Geass, I'm a big fan of supernatural harem animes. I'm a big fan. I watch High School DxD like once a year. I'm still waiting for season 5. That's supposed to be coming out soon. Let's see. I concur. What about white holes? Yes, the theory that if there are black holes, then there could be white holes that are ejecting whatever gets pulled in from the other side. I think that's fascinating, although I would assume that a white hole would exist in a different reality, almost like a polar opposite reality to what we're familiar with. And so imagine, I would be imagining, you know, our universe, which is primarily dark. Like there's virtually, there comparatively to things versus not things, we have more darkness than we do things that produce light. Whereas I would think in that universe with white holes, it would be a universe almost entirely filled with light. And there would just be a few dark spots, comparatively. You know, kind of the reverse, an opposite of our existence. And I hope magic lives there, and then hopefully we can get there at some point. Let's see. There is a book about Interstellar I can recommend. I describe this, or it describes the science of the movie. The movie is a masterpiece. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Matthew McConaughey can be a little grating on me at times, but I think he was a fine actor. It's always fun to hear about a scientist with that kind of an accent. Like, I don't expect it, so it's always funny to hear. So there's that. Do you believe life exists within the soul system? If so, where most likely? Wherever there would be heat and I presume moisture. I mean, not a lot of heat, obviously. Whichever place has the greatest balance that would sustain life. 50%. Let's see. Do you believe... no, I'm also a fan of The Expanse. I have heard of The Expanse. I never watched The Expanse. Maybe that's something to watch soon. I don't know if anyone can see the video game, but I've been hearing that it looks good. What do you guys think?
Ammunition depleted.
Ran out of shotgun ammo. Sucks. Which types do you think would love and be really passionate about animals? INFPs would, of course, be that. I can also imagine ENFPs being that, as well as ISFPs being very passionate about, like, and we're talking about actual passion, like animals are a huge part of their life, then it's like, yeah, INFPs obviously serve that purpose very easily, because with their imagination, they believe they can imagine what a creature is feeling. And here's the fun part: animals, unless you've got some mental disorders, they don't talk back. So all they can do is listen, and then you get to see. And of course, animals are generally unbiased. So if you're doing the right thing, an animal expresses that you're doing the right thing, and so that can be a special connection between you and that whatever the animal is. Let's see. What? I'm trying to figure out where I was last there. Probably most. What is there? What is there where only ENTJs and the population is 100 billion? There would be a lot of killing, I would imagine. A lot of literally throwing one another under the bus. So that's because someone has to be at the top, and the thing is that every other person is also trying to make their way to the top, and many of those people, you are aware, will do anything to get to the top. And sometimes the only way to take care of that situation is to physically remove someone. Are you a cat or a dog person? I have a almost hatred for cats. I do not like cats. I do not like them at all. I would not, if it were up to me, I would never have cats in my life. Ever. So dogs, yeah. At some point in my life, I will get a border collie. Do you think the director Nolan is an INTJ? I've never met Nolan personally, but I'm sure that he is someone that has a real desire to make a lot of money. That I am certain. They are in touch with animals. It's within their nature. Are we talking about INFPs? That makes sense to me. Let's see here. For those who know the Expanse, we'd all be on basic assistance. Basic assistance? Don't they have something like that in Australia? Like everyone gets some kind of universal income? Like someone was talking to me about it the other day, and I'm like, geez, if it wasn't for all the giant animals that want to eat me, I'd totally move to Australia.
Kind of hangar? The target AC must be nearby.
Is Elon Musk INTJ or INTP? He talks a little too much to be an INTP. I don't watch really anything with Elon Musk, so I couldn't tell you for certain, but I was told that he was an INTJ by someone I don't normally get the impression would make numerous mistakes regarding MBTI types, so I'm inclined to suspect that Elon was an INTJ, because from what I understood, he's not really, I mean, he enjoys science well enough, but he's more interested in how he can make money off of it, and then he starts up a company, it does well, and then he sells it off, and then moves on to the next thing, and that kind of behavior, so there's that. What is Lejos type? Lejos? Is it Spanish? I have no idea who that even is.
Jump down there and we've got him cornered. Don't forget, the guys are
What if the world has only ISTPs and they only have knives for hands? They would do their best to come up with a functioning society, which would still be based on meritocracy and your level of physical aggression, I would imagine. Strangely enough, ISTPs are supposed to be these, they're lead introverted thinkers, but they don't lead their life in their head. I mean, necessarily. Like, they are still very physical. Like, many ISTPs I know are all about physical dealings in life. Whereas an INTP is almost entirely in their head, and well, it turns out just changing that one letter in the acronym really changes who you are. But that's obvious. I mean, you kind of know that about an MBTI. Especially if you change a P to a J, it's literally like a completely different person. So, we're aware. Are ENTPs more inclined to love science, philosophy, and psychology? More inclined than other ones? Other personalities? INTPs are really big into science, most certainly. ENTPs do have a deep love for philosophy, and of course, you know that also bleeds into psychology. Obviously, knowing how the human mind works, finding the absolute truth, those kinds of things. So yes, they are of course more inclined to learn those things and experiment, and of course bug people with it. They do that a lot too.
The target AC must be nearby.
Ah, my new friend. You're here at last.
Apparently, Lee Jose is a YouTuber. Oh, I'm unfamiliar with them. Like I said, I don't watch other YouTubers' content. I don't find them interesting enough to watch at all. So I just don't. Does that make me a bad person?
One repair kit remaining.
Okay. This fight is particularly bad for me. But yeah, well, like I said earlier about MBTI in the community, 90% of them, like 90% of what you find is just straight up wrong. So it's just saying, I'm not saying that this person, whoever Lee Jose is wrong, I'm just saying that it's very likely that they are way off base. Which is really weird. Well, I mean, maybe it's not that weird given that, you know, the kinds of people that are doing this, you know, a lot of the MBTI content. There's a website for MBTI that would give some very basic information regarding the system, and it seems like many of those people didn't even bother looking at the basics, and they just decided to read from third-party sources about how MBTI works, and then they try to make, you know, YouTube careers off of it. It's fascinating, and of course, I mean, that alone would be strange, but it's what they say in most cases exists in theory only, and if you were to actually use much of what they talk about in real life, it wouldn't work. You would end up typing people as, you know, all of them would be typed as like intuitives, for example, in some cases. Let's see. Lee Jo is a supposed INTJ that has videos on INTJs. Doesn't look like an INTJ, removed from PDP. PDB? Is that personality database? Oh. Well. C'est la vie. And of course, personality database is the absolute best source for MBTI, which at first, when I first heard about personality database, I assumed it was people that knew about MBTI that were typing these people. And then I went to the website and I found out that a character's personality type is completely based on popular vote. And that's why you should never, ever go to personality database if you're looking for accurate typing information, because you have absolutely no idea what those votes were about. Like, you don't know how those people were voting or why. Yeah, last I looked, they had Gandalf as an INTJ for his personality type in The Lord of the Rings. Ooh, that was difficult. Melissa Talks said that ISFPs and ENTPs are a horrible match. What do you think? I think Melissa Talks is a strong preferenced introverted feeler who has her own system for MBTI, which is not MBTI. So as far as I know, for her, you know, ISFPs in her system are like INTJs in her system. So in which case I'd be like, yeah, sure. You know, clearly her understanding of an ENTP, for example, is someone who's real big on personal feelings all the time. So, you know, I don't know what her system is. I just know that it's not MBTI. That's all I know. Let's see. A comment on personality or a nightmare for anyone with a brain. Yeah, probably. I don't frequent there. I want to say I was doing that with some guests and recording a video for it, and we were just looking through what other people thought certain characters were, and that's where I saw, you know, Gandalf being an INTJ, and I was like, I went on a whole spiel about it for like 30 minutes on if Gandalf were an INTJ, then why did he do this, 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 and this? Because that's not something an INTJ would do. But there's a lot of that on Personality Database. So. Let's see, who's 6'3"? Ian McKellen? It's almost time to have a beer. Yeah, I usually wait until much later in the day. What else? Yeah, Reddit's bad. Just don't go to Reddit for information. It's nearly as bad as the Facebook groups. Like, do not go there. You're just gonna hurt yourself. Ian McKellen is 5'10". He always looked really tall.
Don't forget, the guy's a rat. This won't be smooth sailing.
Like super tall. Every time I saw him. Let's see. Another question doesn't have to be INFP related because apparently no one cares to talk about INFPs. It's INFP Appreciation Day. Gosh darn it. What about all the times they sat and listened to your nonsense about your day without nothing in return? Or with it not wanting anything in return? That's assuming you had an INFP in your life. My height, last measured, was 6 feet, maybe slightly taller than that, but I round down, I don't really care. I don't mind. I'm basically as tall as my father. Which makes sense. What's the next one? Full name is Nicholas. What type is Gandalf? Ah! Gandalf is an ISFJ. As a matter of fact, I didn't type anyone in the Fellowship as being an intuitive. At all. Not a one. Very normal, relatable people. Gandalf absolutely does not even come close to expressing the function preference for INTJ. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Now, his Saruman, INTJ. Absolutely. I'm working on my microphone, got to keep my alter ego and don't want to go off topic, and I'll likely miss large chunks of convo. That's normal. Any reason for ISFJ besides all of his behavior specifically? I actually need to pause this if I'm going to get into this because I've had to say this probably. This would be like the 4th time I've discussed why. So Gandalf was sent to Middle Earth. He was sent. He was not. He didn't have his own plans or ideas for going to Middle Earth because he wanted to check it out or he wanted to do something specific. Gandalf went to Middle Earth because he was told to. His bosses told him to go, and it was his duty to make sure that Sauron never came back into power, and to, of course, help the people of Middle Earth, not through force, but through conversation, to be a diplomat, to this kind of ambassador of sorts, to help the free peoples of Middle Earth to possibly defend against Sauron. That was his whole task while he was there. So he does what he does because he was told to do it. So that's number one. That's introverted sensing. Gandalf, and more specifically in the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf shows up to the Shire because he had a long-standing friendship with Bilbo Baggins, and he came there to have fun and to celebrate his birthday. Well, I mean, I don't know if he necessarily was having fun, but he came there to give away his fireworks and to just just to make it a celebration, essentially. So, of course, extroverted feeling and, once again, introverted sensing. So that's why he went there. He finally found out that Bilbo had a ring of power. Didn't know it was the One Ring, but he had a ring of power, and so he gives Bilbo a stern talking to, which, once again, it's not something that an INTJ, of course, is going to take the ring. He's not going to tell Bilbo that he was wrong and that he should treat it better or that he should leave it behind. He's going to take the ring because an INTJ realizes that there is great power behind those rings, and an INTJ would understand that those rings are inherently tied to the One Ring, and the one task that he was given was to make sure that the influence of Sauron was to remain, at the very least, controlled or subverted at every moment, so he wouldn't just let Bilbo keep the ring. Let's see. He lets Bilbo go. Bilbo leaves the ring there. And I'm trying to think, why would an INTJ possibly leave? Because at this point, Gandalf suspected that the ring that Bilbo had was the One Ring. He leaves it on the floor and then goes to think in front of a fireplace. Now, an INTJ already knows what needs to be done with this ring, even if he doesn't know what it is. He already knows what needs to be done. And leaving it on the floor of a hobbit's home, that was not one of those things that needed to be done. Then Frodo comes home, drunk, and Gandalf says, keep this ring, keep it secret, keep it safe. I'm going to leave potentially the most dangerous item on Middle-earth with a half-drunk midget while he runs off, he rides all the way to a library. It was in Minas Tirith. He goes all the way to a library to read history so that he could come to the conclusion of whether or not that was in fact the One Ring. What INTJ that was looking at a ring of ultimate power on the floor would just leave it there? The answer is none. No INTJ would do that. So Gandalf decides to go off and read about history, recorded memories. That's what he decides to go do. Then he rides back, scaring Frodo, by pulling like a Morpheus in the dark, and he just kind of like waits there for him. And after realizing this was in fact the Ring of Power, Gandalf gives Frodo the ring and says, you need to take this ring of ultimate power that everyone else is looking for, and you need to go with, with Sam, another midget, and you need to walk across country to deliver it so that we can eventually take it to Rivendell. So I'm going to leave you alone with your lifelong friend to go off on this journey while I go see my supervisor about what we should do next. What INTJ wouldn't know what to do at this point? No INTJ would do this. Not at all. Nothing about what Gandalf did was INTJ behavior. It was all introverted sensing and, of course, the extroverted feeling behavior. That's what Gandalf was doing the entire time. He cares all about the people and the fellowship and, sticking together and compassion, pity. All these things are fundamental to living an, in quote, good life, as was taught to him by the Valar. And And then, of course, always hearkening back to his past memories for guidance in the future. He even shows us that when they're in the mines of Moria, and he says, "I have no memory of this place. Therefore, everything needed to stop," because he could no longer remember. So he goes off of his memory. That's very obvious. His traditions, his past, his memories, that's how Gandalf lives his life. And I hope that didn't take too long as a rant. I proclaim this the best. Thank you, Rachel. You are quite the promoter. Have you heard of the MBTI 4 Sides of the Mind? I'm sure I've heard of it, but I don't recall it. I assume that has something to do with the 4 preferenced cognitive functions in these, as they say, stack. I say tower now. Let's see. Do you agree that Willy Wonka is an ENTP? Which Willy Wonka? And if I mean either one. I didn't watch the remake with Johnny Depp, and it's been like 20 years since I watched the first one, so seems like ENTP behavior, doesn't it? I would think that the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that was probably, I mean, it seems like an ENTP, especially with the whole crazed psychopath look in his eye when he was clearly taking people through dangerous places. So there's that. What would Gandalf behaved like if he was an INTJ, Enneagram Type 5? Don't know what Enneagram Type 5 is in an alternate universe. As soon as Gandalf had a, like, let's say we use the Hobbit movies as continuity. As soon as Gandalf had a suspicion that Bilbo did something supernatural to escape from the Goblin Town, he would have investigated immediately. He would have found the ring. He would have taken the ring and have been like, "No, Bilbo, this ring will probably get you killed. I'm going to take it and keep it safe because I'm an INTJ. I know best." So he would have taken the ring, and then the Lord of the Rings movies would have progressed in a much far different fashion. Gandalf as an INTJ probably would have wanted to use the ring, believing to himself that he could control the power in the ring. Because INTJs do believe that they have this iron willpower that cannot be broken or corrupted. So he would just keep the ring. And yeah, would have gone a lot different. I mean, what would an INTJ Gandalf look like? Oh, you mean in physical appearance? I assume he would have looked exactly like Gandalf, just with a temperament for self-centered behavior. It would have been like Saruman. Saruman was an INTJ. Four sides of the mind has to do with shadow functions. Oh yeah, as for shadow functions, in terms of practical use for shadow functions, I have seen far too many inconsistencies to give any what I would believe to be credible practical information regarding the shadow functions. I have seen some strange behaviors out of people, and it seemed like a lot of those behaviors when it comes to developed shadow functions really depended on how they grew up and the environment they grew up in. That seemed to influence how those, in quote, shadow functions work. I hate saying shadow functions. It sounds edgy on purpose. How old are you? I am 35 years of age. Let's see. He would wear glasses. Maybe he would have wore glasses. Anyways, it's back to getting wrecked on Armored Core.
Oh, Carla, you've introduced me to such wonderful people. Wonderful things.
That's the next question. However, I would say that still, even though there were no intuitives that I could identify with in the Fellowship of the Ring, I still enjoyed it. It was a fun story, in my opinion. Do you want to get married? I want to get married to a good companion. Sure, but just get married to get married? No, I'm not interested. I don't like signing contracts. Commitments are tough for me. Well, I mean, granted, I think commitment should be tough for anyone. People should take an adequate amount of time to think about the kinds of commitments they want to make, because they're supposed to be, you know, forever, especially in the case of marriage. And that's not for everybody. What is Sasuke Uchiha's type? INTJ. And I know that in some people that is a controversial thing to say. But you cannot deny his overexpression of introverted intuition. You cannot deny that at all. I think his brother was an ENTJ though, based on what I had said. Now, granted, I haven't watched enough of Shippuden to really give a super accurate, but the way that he behaved was very close to psychopathy at the very least. Even if he had what he thought was a good reason for doing it, killing an entire village of your own people, it's rough. It's a rough thing to do. So close. People keep saying he's an ISFP, and it's like, he spends way too much time being cold and logical to be an ISFP. A lot. Way too much time. Even as a child. It's like, yeah, sure, he saw his village die, but that should make him really sad and crybaby for the rest of his life. He should have PTSD after that in such a way that we would be able to understand as ISFP behavior. No. He was like, nope, I'm going to find my brother and I'm going to kill him. And I'm going to learn all of the best jutsu from all of the best people available, while at the same time, you know, proving his own strength and capabilities. And he was doing that even before his village was destroyed. He was like, I need to make a bigger fireball or something, if I'm remembering his flashbacks correctly. So yeah, no, ISFP is a very silly diagnosis, and you'd have to be ignoring a lot of factors to come up with ISFP, a great number of them. And yeah, it's you know, we get this we get the idea about typing certain characters, and we say no, we try to justify, you know, certain behaviors for things, but in reality you have to look at what they're doing and the decisions they're making, and you have to calculate that in. Otherwise, MBTI is just, you know, TikTok discussion. Which, by the way, there's a lot of those on TikTok, but it's mostly just people believing certain characters or certain types and being completely wrong, so point is that it's bad. What was another one? He would have a black coat and hat and red eyes. Behavior might be more menacing and quiet. Well, no, I mean, INTJs in our current society do not go out of their way to try and be as unapproachable as possible. They still have to work with other people. Like I said, Saruman was an INTJ, so he would just be like Saruman. Do people tell you to shut up as an ENTP? Only in jest, like being funny. And they might tell me to shut up, but no. No one tells me to shut up. And which is perfectly fine, because I don't open my mouth unless I generally have something intelligent to say. Sometimes people ask me about my personal opinions on things, and even then I can't give someone my personal opinion, because I generally don't have personal opinions. Usually on the topics that are asked of me, I just tell them what I know about the subject, and then offer perspectives for good or bad, or right or wrong, or whatever. It's all philosophical. But most of the time I listen to people. And then I can quietly think to myself if they're wrong. Unless someone says something particularly egregious in its level of correctness, in which case I may ask them politely some certain questions that contradict their train of thought, and hopefully they pick it up on their own without me having to say anything. Doesn't happen often, though. Are people taller than you, or most people you see are short? Well, I don't think they're... I think for men to be considered short as a man, you'd probably need to be under 5'7". Like, that's just my personal definition on, like, how I perceive someone to be short. Like, noticeably, oddly shorter than other people. So, yes, the average height in the United States for men, I think, was like 5'8", last I looked. So I don't consider that to be short, I consider that to be average. So to be under 5'7", I would start to think that that person might be considered short. Women, I think the average was 5'3", I think, or 5'4". So a short woman would probably, for me, be like 5'1" and shorter. That would be what I consider to be short. I try to be accurate with my speech.
Built that AC at RAD, tourist. Don't underestimate it.
5'7", what is real world measurement? I don't know what you mean by a real world measurement. The real world measurement was 5'7". Speaking of anime characters, how would you type Lelouch from Code Geass, keeping in mind the personas he puts on throughout the show? Yeah, his extroverted feeling is spot on throughout in terms of manipulating other people. He of course enjoys chess. He enjoys playing games with people's lives, which it was a tough one. I remember when I was first watching it, I thought to myself, he displays a great many ENTP qualities, most certainly. But, especially when it came to ditching school and whatnot. However, because of how the story progresses, I could also have seen him as an ENTJ character. But his caring about family members was too much. And his ditching school and not really caring about his own personal success. It was all about destroying someone that wronged him. And that throws me off for an ENTJ diagnosis. He seemed very ENTP, even down to predicting the behaviors of people. That's a very common trait in ENTPs. So, oh no, I hit the wrong button. Type Donald Trump, ESTJ. Easy, huh? Some people have told me that Donald Trump was an ENTJ, and like, I get it. You know, he's in quotes successful, and he has money, and excuse me, bless me. He has money, and he's got businesses and all that. He's not really concerned with. He wasn't really concerned with moving up in his life. He was more concerned with just keeping what he had. That's the kind of behavior that he had. And when, of course, he came from money, that sort of thing. He learned from, businessmen all of his life, and so he does that. He didn't really take his own path in life, and of course he's far more gregarious than an ENTJ would be, by a lot. And it wasn't until he was much, much older that he decided that he wanted to try and run for president, which, of course, an ENTJ, if an ENTJ wanted to become president, you would have known about them being in politics for a lot earlier in life, for sure. When an ENTJ decides at 18 or earlier that, yeah, I want to just kind of run the country and be president or some high-up politician or perhaps the director of a government agency, that's what they're doing. And they do it from very early on in life. They don't wait until they're in their 70s to become president. And they certainly don't do it in the way that he did it. But yeah, Donald Trump, ESTJ. Steven Crowder, ESTJ. Ben Shapiro, ESTJ. Raymond Reddington from The Blacklist, ESTJ. Gordon Ramsay, ESTJ. Trying to think of other famous characters. ESTJs live among you. Your supervisor at the McDonald's, ESTJ.
50%.
Do ENTJs always beat you in arguments? So, and here's the thing about ENTJs in terms of ones that I may have had well, I don't get into arguments with ENTJs. I have never been in an argument with one. In real life, after knowing about MBTI, after high school especially, I believe that I've met one in person, and of course they're rare, most certainly, but that's not why I've only met one. The reason that I've only met one is because I just happened to end up meeting the person who was in charge of the place that I was working at. In the Xerox building. I just happened to meet him. And so there's a reason why you don't end up meeting ENTJs outside of high school. And that's assuming that the ENTJ went to the same school that you went to. Because they're on the move. They're not wasting time making a bunch of friends, especially for frivolities. Like, they don't believe in frivolous behavior. If an ENTJ was to go on a vacation, they would still be working on that vacation, because that's what their life is about. Progress, moving forward, getting more authority, power, money, moving up, being what they objectively see as being better than the average person. And they're always trying to make those decisions and devote their time to it. So I'm not going to meet a lot of ENTJs. And the one that I knew in the Discord had some problems with the person they were in a relationship with. Don't remember if it was a boyfriend or girlfriend. And they got the answers they wanted from me over the course of like 6 hours, spanning over 2 days. Hadn't heard from them since. And that was months ago. And that's exactly what I would expect to see in either an INTJ or an ENTJ who actually wanted to come to me for MBTI information. They're not going to stick around and spend time, messing around in a Discord. They have other things to do with their time, period. And that goes for whether it's online or offline. They have things to do. They don't have time to spend it learning things that aren't going to be of any value to them on a more objective scale. So, have I ever gotten into an argument with one?
No repair kits remaining.
No. I tried to talk to the one I met in person. Of course, he was a busy man, understandably. He ran the entire building. But he didn't want to talk to me. I tried talking to him in any times that he would pass by, and it got to I think it was after my second attempt to actually have a conversation with him, he stopped coming around me, and he would have other people talk to me instead on his behalf. Because I kept asking him personal questions which for us normal folk would just be general questions that you would use for small talk. Nah, not him. He was very uncomfortable trying to give me those answers. So I suspect that he knew I was onto him, and he just didn't want to progress any further in that conversation. Let's see, Obama had him as ENTP. Now, I don't know Obama personally, but it would seem that most of his policies came from a place of personal feelings, the things that he said. For example, when you go on national television and you tell people, you tell the public about how the wage gap is real and it's something that you need to take care of. As a matter of fact, it's apparently such a problem that you need to, I guess, remake the law and just implement it again. Because we already had the whole unequal pay thing in law since like the 60s. So for him to go on stage and actually say that the wage gap was real in the way that they describe it, you're not an introverted thinker if you actually believe that, because that's obviously wrong. It's very, very wrong. And of course, it's been debunked for years. But that's what he decided to do. You know, as just one example of introverted feeling behavior. He didn't really care about, you know, the accuracy of what he was saying. He just cared that other people were going to enjoy him saying it. So that's more introverted feeling behavior. It's not. It was not the behavior of an ENTP. An ENTP in office would probably get assassinated. Would be my guess, if you actually had one. Let's see here. I might not have met a real ENTJs, but some of them seemed like it. I never met an INFP or an ISTP. Now, that's hard to believe that you've never met an INFP or an I guess it depends on where you live, maybe. Maybe you spend a majority of your time indoors and you don't really talk to people. Because in most societies, I would imagine ISTPs would be fairly common. And although INFPs aren't the most common personality type, I would still expect you to have met one in passing. I would have thought at some point. As for whether or not I'm in the Discord, let me take a look. Yes. Yes, I am in the Discord. Unless you were not talking to me. I see only ISTJs and ESTJs. Oh. What about Matt Walsh? Only one figure comes to mind, and there's no way you're talking about that person. Right. Matt Walsh. I watched a video of him not terribly long ago where he was talking about... He was talking with a priest, I think it was, and they were talking about demonic possessions and things like that, and he seemed very fascinated by that. And I was like, well, it's good to have that open mind, but I don't really know anything about Matt Walsh. I would assume that there is a great number of right-wing figures that are introverted sensing, most likely ESTJs. People like to discount that whole extroverted intuition in the third position thing. As it gets older, they start, you know, they can easily start caring about more abstract, non-necessarily productive topics. Now, granted, when it comes to policies, you know, for the country, that can be rather productive, obviously, because you're trying to make change in your country. So that makes more sense for them to get involved in that regard. But, you know, it's not outside of the realm of possibility for an ESTJ to become more interested as they get older on more abstract topics. Mythologies, for example. I would have unmuted you and just... I guess that makes sense. And, no. I know Harley can't talk. Because she hasn't said anything for hours. Or something.
Quite the contrary, yes I can.
She's a liar. Rest in peace. So what was the next one? I noticed that ESTJs dislike abstract thinkers. Now, when it comes to you going against what they're trying to convey, what they're trying to get across to you, yeah, they don't like it when someone decides to just jump off into an abstract topic, like most people don't. However, the people that I have found to be most annoyed by that are ESTPs and ESFPs, the younger ones, of course. When they're older, people develop in, you know, different ways depending on their life experience. But if you're looking for someone who really thinks that spending most of your time in the abstract is a waste of time, ESTPs and ESFPs, they really oftentimes, especially in the younger years, that's a waste of time for sure. They think that there are many other things you could be enjoying in life. Let's see.
Don't forget, the guys
I noticed, as for the whole not meeting an INFP, ISTP thing, you should be able to find them in the MBTI communities. A lot of my Discord, the most talkative people, are ISTPs on the Discord specifically, and of course we have a fair number of INFPs. So if you really wanted to, talk with one, I mean, they're there. Also, you could go to the Facebook groups. There's gonna be a lot of those there as well.
Which is why I asked if he was on the Discord, because there's a lot. There's a lot.
There's a lot. You hear all that disdain in her voice, anyone? There's just so many. Gross. That's what you sound like.
I'm actually curious. How many INTPs are actually in the Discord? Like, actual ones that you've typed?
2 repair kits
One.
remaining.
Well, I guess that would be 2, including my friend Wilson, who decided to bug me. At least that's what he said he was wanting to do. Came in yesterday for the first time. Or super early in the morning.
I lost my
Not
battery.
too many. INTPs just don't. They don't. It's not that they can't care. It's just that they could be doing other things, and that's mostly what they do. They're mostly doing those other things rather than involving themselves in the typologies of people, especially when most people tell them that MBTI is just astrology, you know, for psychology, and is more or less worthless as a thing,
Well-
which, in their defense, most of what they read is going to be useless information because it's absolutely wrong.
Well, and in my defense, the reason I do it is because I also like doing those social experiments, those little...
You barely ever in the Discord, so...
That's not true. I'm there all the time. I just don't talk.
I just don't talk. Fine. Point being that, yeah, INTPs aren't going to spend a whole lot of time in there. Why spend time in the Discord when they could be looking up random information somewhere else?
Well, because I get to, like I said, do social experiments.
Social experiments.
What else am I going to call typing sessions that I sit in on? Social experiments.
Social experiments. Good enough for me. I forgot there was food on this plate.
Oh, that reminds me.
Mmm.
We have a session, don't we?
Mmm. I don't know.
You forgot.
Oh, wait, no. I think it was at 5.
Tomorrow?
Oh, it was at 5 today.
PTS.
It's in like 2 hours.
So yeah, it's in 2 hours.
We're good.
So yeah.
Well, you say she's always on Discord, but I barely talk to her.
Is this place some kind of...
Ew. Well, yeah. One, I'm not social. I'm just not. And 2, like you said, I'm doing other shit.
No.
Stuff.
Alright.
I'm doing other stuff.
More questions. Give me the big questions. Let's go. We're on the home stretch. We've got like 45 minutes left for this stream. It's INFP Appreciation Day.
The sweet melody of the generator. How Milktooth's heart sings.
We built that AC at RAD, tourist. Don't underestimate it.
Why is it so red looking outside? Oh, right. I have blankets for curtains to keep the light out. Gross.
I use sheets.
Yeah. Oh, the sheets weren't good enough.
You didn't use the right color.
Probably.
At 30%.
Putin? They want you to type Putin.
Type Putin? I don't know about Putin at all. As fun as that would be to get to know. He obviously cares a great deal about power. I mean, most people would give him the ENTJ role, and that could very easily be accurate. But you could also say INTJ. He could also be an ESTJ. It's possible. You have to figure out how often he preferences tradition and tries to convince people that that's the correct thing to do because that's how it's always been done.
What's the type that is likely to troll online?
That is likely to troll online. I've seen INTJs do it. I've seen ENTPs do it. I've seen INTPs do it. I've seen all kinds.
I've seen a lot of
ISTPs.
extroverters. Yeah.
Well, I don't normally see... I wouldn't normally see that many extroverted people on 4chan to begin with. Because if you're on 4chan, then it usually means You're not talking to people in real life. If we're talking about colloquial extroversion.
Then you can't tell us that we need to get out more when you need to get out more too.
Yeah, woman. The platform? 4chan? But trolling is not specific to any one personality. Just depends on whether or not they get personal enjoyment out of doing it. I've seen it all.
Any other questions?
I have a question. How many
Oh, no.
INFPs are in the chat right now?
If you're an INFP, put I.
INFP.
And we've got him cornered.
Yeah, that's what I meant. What did I say? I say
The
INFJ.
guy's a rat. This won't
I said INFP. I'm
Okay.
just telling them what to do. Looks like none. There are none.
I expected none. Fun. INFP appreciation stream. No INFPs around to be enjoyed or praised.
Was this place some
They're
kind
too
of
busy
hangar?
eating ice cream
Well-
and watching Grey's Anatomy.
Nearby.
My new friend.
You can always just say, if you're an INFP and you're watching this later, leave a comment.
Oh, yeah, they could do that too, I suppose. Strangely enough, I was surprised at how many views after the live stream these streams would get.
That's why I recommend switching up times.
You know, should do them later.
I
earlier.
can pretend to be one.
Yeah, you pretend to be one.
Praise me, I
Then,
suspect to be an INFP. Ben, go to the corner.
You, as an INFP, you have all the wonderful makings of a therapist and a genuinely good person. Good for you. I'm a bad person that does bad things.
Well, we were going over famous ones earlier. Johnny Depp is one.
Uh-huh. Johnny Depp. He a good boy. He just had a woman in his life that that did some stuff.
She was hit on the head with a stupid stick. I can say that, right?
I suspect so. It's okay if a woman calls another woman stupid.
I know a little bit about Enneagram, the Enneagram.
I know very little.
I'm not exactly a fan of it, to be
Name
honest
one
with you.
famous sign. Well, we named Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I already covered that one.
Johnny Depp be famous, and I love Johnny Depp, by the way.
We've got him cornered.
He's a great actor.
Every Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
The guy's a rat. This won't
I watch
I
it just for
actually
him.
won't watch the next one because he's not in it.
Yeah. If he's not going to be in it, I ain't going to watch it. Ben, you know
Ben,
I
I already
can't
sent you
read.
to the corner.
Was this place some kind of hangar? The target AC must be nearby.
Here, I'll type it.
There you go. What do we think a better time would be for the stream if not noon? Won't everyone be out at the club or something later in the night?
I can do a poll on the server
We
later.
could do them. Yeah, that could work.
Try to pull some statistics, see what we can come up with.
We can see what we find, I guess.
If we start doing streams multiple times a week, it'll
Yeah.
really be helpful to find out what days people would be more willing to watch.
I think it
As
would be
well,
best
so-
to do them multiple times throughout the week. Just have to start doing more. What exactly makes a podcast? What exactly
Two
makes
people or more talking about something.
That's
I don't know.
it.
I've seen some that's one person that just goes on, but the most popular ones have multiple people that are just talking about a particular topic or a current event or
Makes sense.
something like that.
That's something we could do.
Yeah, I could do a podcast.
Um,
When is the fan meetup?
the fan
What?
meetup. As soon as I have a bunch of money, then we can do a fan meetup. Otherwise, if you want to talk to me, I have a Discord, believe it or not. Like, I've got this whole Discord thing, and, you know, people talk to me, and you just have to at me,
This won't be smooth.
and I'll be there.
He's
Well,
normally in
no.
voice chats as well.
And I'm normally in voice chat, yeah.
Thank you, Ven.
Oh. Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon.
When's the world tour?
The World Tour. Well, as soon as I'm making, like, $70,000 from YouTube a year, then yeah, sure, I'll save up the money.
Podcasts don't necessarily take up a lot of work. It's not a lot of work as much as it is time and effort that you have to put into it, because you got to continuously do it on a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But it's podcasts themselves, outside of the basic advertisements and whatnot, it's no different than doing a live stream on YouTube.
There you go.
You know what? Zedon, you are more than welcome to talk about your feelings. Urchin is a great counselor.
Am I?
Don't look at me like that.
I'm getting volunteered for stuff.
You are.
Look, as
I
my
will,
granddaddy used to say, I'll do anything for $20.
I will INTP weigh myself right out of this one.
There you go. Yeah, we can talk about our feelings and stuff, for sure. I'm always down to talk about my feelings. Wow, that was easy for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, see, it works out perfectly. It's
It works out
duo therapeutic. Right.
That's right.
Good. All right, tourist. I'll see about retrieving our secret
Hmm.
project. We'll need it to go.
There you go. Now you have a counselor buddy.
However, of course, if you want me to type you, that does cost money. Now, if you were talking to me about 3 months ago, it would have been free. But I was told by too many people I can't do it for free anymore.
I agree with this.
So yes. As for talking, that's something I enjoy doing. So.
A lot.
It seems like something I could pull off. The talking portion, anyway.
It depends on the topic, as far as I go.
So yeah,
One new message.
anything's possible, that's what I say. 30 minutes left. Ask me anything. It's that time of the
Alright,
night.
speed post questions, go. Any show on Netflix?
No. Most of them. You know what was really fun to rewatch? The Rings of Power. And Ven told me she loved it. All 8 episodes.
No, it was not. And no, she did not. And thank you for sharing that misery with us.
That was... But, of course, that's an Amazon show, so... But, yeah. The Rings of Power isn't so bad.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so.
I'm going to get an alcoholic beverage. I'll be right back.
He moved so far. I half expected him to flip me off.
Who's gonna flip you off?
Nothing. Nothing at all. Alright, what other questions you got, guys? Come on, there's
Good show.
10 people. You have to have some questions.
There's only 10 people? No, that's about right.
Yeah. Well, that's towards the end.
Yeah. Disney Plus. I don't subscribe, but I doubt it.
I can check, but I don't think so.
I imagine it's fine. Type of black
Black
bear.
bear.
I think most, if not all, animals are ISTJs. If I had to give them one.
Type it. Well, he just said
I just said
all animals.
ISTJs. They live a life based on instincts and programming. They don't have these strong
Type of phone?
type of phone. Which kind of phone? A speakeasy? A landline phone? Cell phone? E.T.'s finger?
It did phone home.
It did phone home. Just saying.
What?
ENFP. Naruto. ENFP.
A smartphone. Any particular kind? Apple, Android? Which one we going for?
Type of smartphone. ISFJ. It's a personal everyday assistant that is unappreciated. ISFJ. An iPhone. A more pretentious version of an ISFJ. Any other personal questions? I've been asked my age, my height. My color's blue, by the way. How to join Discord.
I can link you.
There
I'll
you
link
go.
you right now.
And you can talk and apply to be typed.
Arena Combat Aptitude Evaluation Program. Number
Oh, Discord saying I don't have friends.
Sakura. Ugh. Character I didn't really care much about.
Main system activated.
She seemed like an ESFJ, but I'd have to rewatch it. The only characters I cared about really were Naruto and Sasuke. That's about it. Of course, why can't I remember his name? Guy with the Sharingan and just one eye. Can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name. Like the most loved character in all of Naruto. Anyway.
We're gonna have to go through and clear out some of those invites.
What invites?
People have been sending invites out to certain channels.
Oh.
They never end, so
Never
I'll go through and
end.
clear them out later. Here you go, friend. There's the Discord.
So I think Sakura is probably... so we've got INTJ, ENFP, and ESFJ, I think. Maybe. Hinata's more important anyway of a character. Hinata is an ISFP, by the way. And the best girl, in fact. Do you know any memes? I know a plethora of memes. Any one in particular? Did it
I'm sorry about that, I died.
just get deleted, or?
Yeah, he took it back.
Oh, okay.
He's done that a few times.
Okay, see, I thought it was me hallucinating. Alright, that's good.
Oh, well, I mean, there's that too, but
I'm
we
just
weren't going
seeing
to talk
shit
about that.
today. Shonen anime? Is that like Naruto? It's Dragon Ball Z. Shonen.
Where? I was just letting him know that so he doesn't think he's going completely crazy.
When I was young, I watched Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon. So,
Main system activating.
there was that. Still watch anime. I mean, if there's any good ones, you know, then I'll watch them, but... Code Geass, Gundam Wing. Big fan of Gundam Wing. Not a single pilot was an ENTP. Very upsetting. Because when I was a child, I wanted to grow up to be a Gundam pilot. And so... I still do want to be a Gundam pilot. I just don't think my chances are very good. No, I did not watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, although I've heard some things about it. So I cannot beat this guy. Attack on Titan, I think, is that acronym you were going with there. And I watched like 2 episodes of it. Not in order either. I watched the first episode. And then I watched the episode where there was like a female giant that was killing people, and she was way faster and smarter than the other ones.
Main system activating combat mode.
So yeah, didn't much care for it. Most of my anime is supernatural harem animes, so Trinity 7. I've watched Love Hina. I've watched High School DxD, because of course that's required watching for that genre. No, I have not played Nier Automata. I've not seen it, though. And they also have a lot of videos related to the main character of Nier Automata on Pornhub. No, I don't play Fortnite either.
Is Fortnite still a thing?
Aurelius would talk about playing it, so I assume. Is Fortnite cringe? I've never played Fortnite, so I
Main system activating.
don't know if it makes me cringe or not. Probably not. It's just a video game. Do you want a harem in real life? Only if every person in the harem was okay with being in the harem. Then yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, I've never played it. It was kind of like a children's version of PUBG. Was how it was described to me at one time. which I have played PUBG, and God, it was terrible. I still played it until I eventually got a number of wins that satisfied me, and then I stopped playing it. PUBG, it's like you're playing solo. It's like playing poker. You don't play with what you've got. You play with what your opponent has. My first win involved me killing exactly 2 other players. I have played Apex Legends. I played it for, I think, like a solid 2 months straight to try and get good at it. And I got well enough, and I went out of my way to practice snap firing. Like, I would actually spend way too many hours a week just practicing snapping from, this position to that position and firing and getting accurate shots. But of course, my big problem with it was that all the rounds that you fired were like projectiles, and all the characters moved super fast. So you could actually dodge incoming fire. So what it came down to was the people who were fastest and had the best reflexes would get into essentially close combat. So you were too close to actually dodge any of the rounds, and so as long as you had the reflexes for it, you would win. Well, that's not me. I'm not that good. So I stopped playing that way. I stopped trying to compete on that level. I mean, I was still a pretty good shot. I just not, I wasn't on that level. And so I started playing to my advantage. My advantage being I knew what they were going to do next. And so I would lure them into traps, things that they couldn't avoid. My favorite weapon in Apex was the slow grenades, the ones that slowed people in place. Those were my favorite. So I knew that there was a monster inside one of the buildings. They just got done solo wiping out 3 players on their own. I'm like, okay, well, there's no one else around, so I need to take this guy out. I have 2 options. Either I can try to take him out, or I can wait for him to move on while I hide. And in some cases, if you believed that you needed to get whatever equipment they picked up, well, then you got to take him out. And of course, when they're super fast and they have, the reflexes and accuracy of a god, you can't just walk in there and expect that you're going to win the fight. So grenades, slow grenade, big explosion grenade, use whatever ultimate ability you had, and then take them out with that. Always maintain concealment wherever you're at, and shoot them when they're at their most vulnerable, and then take them out that way and collect the loot and move on. Because I'm not going to try and have a gunfight in a game where you can literally empty a magazine into somebody and they've only lost like half their health, and their shield. Just doesn't make sense. Not for me, anyway. I'm just not that good reflex-wise. But I can plan fairly well. I did play Valorant. I played that for a weekend. Got boring. Stopped playing it. In PUBG, I think I got like 10 wins solo, and then I became disinterested and stopped playing. Although, what I did like about PUBG was they were using, realistic gun ballistics. So yes, there was bullet drop in the game, for example. So it's nice to see developers go, above and beyond to try and give people a more realistic experience. I thought that was good for them. Russian roulette. If I had played Russian roulette, then I've only ever won Russian roulette, right? So as far as you know, I'm the Russian roulette champion. Let's see. My best friend loves JoJo. I've watched some episodes with her. Well, it's good. I've never seen it. Do you have a job? Yeah, I have a job. I'm doing it right now. As a matter of fact, my job also requires that I go to an appointment in like an hour. Yep, my job is to take care of my harem. It's true.
Ironically, my job also requires me to go to an appointment in an hour. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. Huh. Man, you got lucky and actually killed that guy after about fucking... Nope, I swore.
Target destroyed.
My bad. After like 30 tries.
Evaluation. Well done.
Historical European Martial Arts Group. What MBTI types would I probably meet there? Well, just through sheer statistics, sensors, introverted or extroverted. Yeah, you'll get some people that show up there because, you know, their father, you know, wanted them to go there. So they're like, yeah, my dad wants me to be here, so I'm here. Then you'll have others that say, absolutely, we need to uphold these historical traditions. And, you know, so there will be those people that are really interested in that. And then you'll have some people that are like, oh, do I get to hurt people? Sign me up. And, you know, all of it revolves around introverted sensing and extroverted sensing. So there's going to be a good number of them there. I mean, granted, there could also be possibly intuitive types there. Extroverted intuitives most likely. Anything's possible in my world. Whether or not it happens, of course, is something else.
Number 16, rank C.
Oh, this guy's a weirdo.
Main system.
Your PC specs. My computer is about 6 years old now. I'm running a 970 Ti. I do have a Cabby Lake. It's like a, what is it, like a 7800K i7. Yeah, I know of an INFP that he likes martial arts. Is he out there, you know, being the best martial artist he could possibly be? Absolutely not, but he does take an interest in it. And how many of you are in my Discord?
Main system. Activating.
I'm assuming not very many. Because the Discord is available. You know,
Do you want me to post it again?
No, it's fine. Once I'm sure was enough. And of course, if they really wanted to find it, they can. There's other ways to find it. Who are we supposed to be typing soon, anyway?
50%.
If I may ask.
Hold please.
Who? I didn't catch that.
Give me a second. Give me a second. I'm pulling it up. It is
30%.
Orbit.
Orbit.
Distable. Yeah, distable orbit.
I'm not familiar.
50%.
Same. But yep, that's who we're typing.
Okay. What are the odds that they were watching the stream?
I'm gonna be bluntly honest, probably none.
Oh well.
Main system. Activating combat mode.
Beer is good.
Yeah, I
Well,
posted it on time.
INFP Appreciation Day kind of wasn't very INFP related, but you know. Worse things have happened, and then if Druid ever sees this, he'll be like, "Why didn't you invite me?" I don't know. Gonna sound exactly like that. Come on.
Target destroyed.
Is Orbit in the UK or something?
Well done.
Possibly.
No, said Mountain Standard Time, so I'm assuming it's
This is Michelob
Arizona.
Ultra. Michelob Ultra. 2.6 grams of carbohydrates, because, you know, gotta be low carb. Trying to lose weight.
Then I'm so glad you're here to translate what I said.
Huh? Oh, well. All right. 9:47. All right, I'm going to take some last second questions, and then I'm preparing for the appointment.
Sub AC in Hinkle. Call sign Sula.
Main system activating combat mode.
Just crickets, I tell you. Well, then again, we don't have that many people, so. All right, well, then that will be it for today's stream. Thank you all for joining. There wasn't a terribly large amount of people, but maybe we're probably just going to do this more often throughout the week. We can do this like twice a week, 3 times a week. I don't know. However often I can get my assistants to show up. You're going to write a book? I am going to write a book. I am going to write a book sometime before I die. I actually have a trilogy that I've got, and then a 2-book prequel to the story, so got it all planned out for that. Supernatural.
To add on to what Urchin said, if you are in the Discord, please make sure you keep an eye out over the next couple of days. I will be posting some votes. Those votes will determine what extra days we'll be doing it and if we need to change times or not.
Yes. It should be, yeah, and we'll see if we need to make it later or earlier. Who edits your videos? I edit my videos. I do the recording and the editing. Yes, I will write those books before I die. It's called Set, by the way. Right. Anyways, I think that'll do it for today. Make sure, of course, to vote. I'll put up a poll on the YouTube channel to see what times people would prefer, earlier in the day or later. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Huh? I'm gonna wave. Wave. Say bye, Harley.